Hey, honor students, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Classes in session, come on in. Hit that like button as you come on in. Let's just go ahead. Listen, just got to get it out the way. Put the homework on the desk. Just hit the like button. It's the little things. It's the little things. Let's start this year out right, y'all. Hit the like button. Hit the like button. I am going to be working tonight. Y'all got me reading this book. We about to get into it. Yeah, we are about to get into it. So you guys wanted me to read the book, and that's what we gonna do. First day of 2025. Come on in. Come on in. Happy New Year. Seemed like it wasn't that long. I was with you all. Let me know if you all were here with me on the last live. Look what we did, a review of the Drea Kelly interview. We reviewed Drea Kelly's interview with Carlos King. I remember that man name one day. Carlos King. That was a really, really good, I thought at least, a really, really good interview with Drea Kelly and Carlos King. I learned a lot. That's what life's about. Learning. I learned a lot. And so come on in here. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Come on in. Virtuous Woman says, Happy New Year. Family is in town. But listen, y'all. Virtuous Woman said, listen, I hit the link. I dropped the assignment off. I got the heck on. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for that, Karen. What's up, Karen? Happy New Year, Karen. Hey, Ariane. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Hey, Yvonne McGowan. Happy New Year. Hey, Rhoda. Happy New Year. Hey, welcome. Francis. Hey, Francis. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Rhoda says, who wrote this book? Her name is, let me move, Kathy Iandoli. So Kathy Iandoli, our researchers, I'd never heard of her. She comes from, I guess, the industry, the hip hop industry, as far as with like, let me see. So it says in here about Kathy Iandoli, it says that she's a critically acclaimed hip hop journalist and author of God Save the Queens, the essential history of women in hip hop. She's written for numerous publications, including Vibe, The Source, The Village Voice, Rolling Stone, and many more. An alumni and a resident of music business at New York University, she routinely serves as a TV and radio panelist for discussions on hip hop and gender. She lives in northern New Jersey. So I've never heard of her before. I did come across her Instagram. Child, I don't know what her ethnicity is because she don't look black. She don't look black to me. But she's really engulfed into the hip hop culture. Her recent book was actually on Eve, the rapper Eve. So it looks like that came out maybe around September-ish. And this one right here, this book that's on the screen, Aaliyah, baby girl, better known as Aaliyah. This book was written in, let me see, 2021. 2021. So she's written a number of books. She got a number of books under her belt. Like I said, she's kind of engulfed into the hip hop industry. So yeah, her books are kind of centered, from what I see, a lot of it. Her books are centered around the culture, the hip hop culture. So her name's on the screen. You can look up her IG, but you can see her other works and things. So I'm like, I wonder what she got to say about Eve. Y'all see that picture of Eve going around where she at the dinner table with, I guess it was a photo from Christmas, because I seen it coming off for Christmas, and it's just Eve and the other people. So the thing that stood out to me about the picture is that she was the only color in the picture as far as with the people. Now, I'm all for a blended family, but is it blended when it ain't nobody there that look like you but you? So, I don't know. People had a lot of commentary to say about that. They talking about it look like a scene from Get Out. I don't know. But listen, bless Eve and her family. It was an interesting photo. It was interesting. I saw it. I had my little thoughts for 5.2 seconds and I moved on with life. But there's a lot of people who kind of who who trying to make sense of what they had going on. Like, what are other people at the dinner table? Why Eve, the only one of color sitting at the dinner table? Now she did have a son next to her, but he mixed, but he got really, really light skin, curly hair. So wasn't nobody looking like her as far as with the melanin. So yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. Who else we got in here? Blessed from Texas. What's up? Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Hey, Julia. Happy New Year. Y'all, we finna get in this book. Y'all, y'all do me right the likes. Just go on, get it out the way. Hit the like button. Hit the like button. My mods, y'all monitor the like buttons for me, please. Please make sure just try to make sure they making sense. Just make sure they making sense with the number of people that are in the building. But I'm going to be reading. It's going to be a longer book than the other books that I've read thus far, but that's fine. You all said that you wanted me to read this book, so that's what we're going to do. So I am about to get into it. Let me see. Ariana said, yes, her family. Ariana says, yes, it did look like the Blessed Eve. So listen, like, I'm just saying, when I saw it, I was just like, okay, because it was this big, long, huge table she was sitting at. And the husband was standing on one end, and then she was way on the other end. And she was like, I ain't gonna lie, she did look like the help. She did look like the help. The help that kind of sat down. They said, oh, we about to take a picture. She quickly sat down, did a little smile, and then I guess went back to business. I don't know. It was just different, but listen. Happy New Year, Eve. Eve and family. Francis says Eve is a Scorpio too. I think I do remember that her being a Scorpio. I don't know where her birthday is. Y'all crazy, nasty Diddy a Scorpio too. He is a Scorpio too. Drake is a Scorpio. Sierra Scorpio. I think Kim Kardashian is a Scorpio. There's a lot of celebrities that are Scorpios. Yeah. Yes, a lot of celebrities that are Scorpios. Ariel says, like they live at the White House. Child, that table is long as Hey, Kathleen, happy New Year. So, y'all, we about to get into it. So, y'all hit that like button. I'm about to get in this book because I got my work cut out for me. So, let's get ready. Let's get ready. So, we are reading Baby Girl, better known as Aaliyah. So, this is exactly on my screen what the cover looks like. Amazon is where I ordered the book. So, if anyone's interested in getting the book, this is where, it came from Amazon. And that's the beautiful cover right there. So, chapter 1, get your motor running. Detroit turned out to be heaven, but it also turned out to be hell. Y'all, that's a quote from Marvin Gaye, the late Marvin Gaye. That was a quote from him. I ain't never been to Detroit, but it ain't nothing I didn't heard about that place that has me to have that on my bucket list. But listen, y'all do what you do. Be safe. Keep your head up and stay vigilant. Detroit, Michigan was once a city decorated with industrial domination and strong music industry roots. Eventually dubbed the Motor City, Detroit would emerge as the epicenter for the automotive industry. Henry Ford drove the first car down a Detroit street in 1896. 3 years later, he formed the Detroit Automobile Company. Almost every automobile company followed, forming their home bases in or around Detroit. It was like an industrial mecca, and one by one, it was dismantled. Historians mark the year of 1958 as the beginning of the end for Detroit. Once the Packard Motor Car Company closed shop after 55 years, what was once fueled with promise was now exhausting itself as the city was losing its industrial skin. However, as the automotive industry had begun its downward spiral there, music brought new life. In 1959, a Detroit native by the name of Berry Gordy started a musical empire that would change history when he borrowed $800 from his folks and formed Tamla Records. The following year, it was officially incorporated and renamed as Motown Records Corporation. Motown, a portmanteau of Detroit's Motor City roots, and the word town was quite frankly the heart of what he now became an American popular music. What has now become an American popular music, thanks to the black musicians who encompassed it. Berry Gordy physically named the headquarters of Motown Hitsville, USA, the physical address being 2648 West Grand Boulevard. Artists like Diana Ross and the Supremes, the Temptations, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, the Jackson Five, Marvin Gaye, Gladys Knight, and the Pips, and Stevie Wonder were all residents of Motown at one point or another. Detroit would later become the hub of techno music thanks to a DJ named Juan Atkins and the center point for popularized battle rap. Once Eminem became the pale face of Detroit hip hop scene. Child, why they had to say he became the pale? Child, this book says he became the pale face of Detroit's hip hop scene. I wasn't ready for that line. That's what she wrote. That's what that woman added in this book. She called that man pale face. Detroit had grit and glamour. It was perhaps the perfect place to grow a complicated superstar who ironically never owned a car. Child, she lived long enough to even own a car. Aaliyah Dana Helton wasn't actually born in Detroit, but in New York, in Brooklyn's Bedford Stuyvesant neighborhood on January 16th, 1979. So she has a birthday coming up, January 16th. She was born a year before me. She was born January 16th, 1979. Her family had roots in New York, in the New York Transit Authority, along with operating several small businesses, including a laundromat and a tailor shop. Her father, Michael Miguel Holton, worked several jobs before later becoming his daughter's personal manager. Her mother, Diane Halton, was also a singer, traveling early on with a touring theater company, though eventually she became a teacher. She left teaching to be a stay-at-home mom once her kids were born, later co-managing Aaliyah with her father. First came Aaliyah's brother, Rashad, on August 6, 1977, and then Aaliyah arrived less than 2 years later. Her name is a spelling variation of Aaliyah, the feminine version of the name Allah, which in Arabic means the highest, most exalted one. It can also mean the best and the champion, like Muhammad Ali. When Aaliyah was 5 and Rashad was 7, the Halton family moved to Detroit, Michigan. There's something very telling about Aaliyah's being born in Brooklyn and raised in Detroit. For almost the entire duration of her music career, she would self-identify as street but sweet. It was a cute little rhyme that truncated her style into two words. One's oftentimes diametrically opposed in society, though paired side by side to describe Aaliyah, they were quite fitting. By the 1990s, Brooklyn uh, supplanted supplanted the Bronx to become the heartbeat of hip hop music alongside Queens, as artists like Notorious B.I.G., Lil Kim, Nas, Foxy Brown, Mobb Deep, Jay-Z ran the city. Those Brooklyn roots gave Aaliyah her edge. She later returned to New York City during this heyday once she became a star. Meanwhile, Detroit's smooth soul of Motown still gave Aaliyah this indescribable deliberacy amid an inner city on the verge of decline. Street but sweet. By the time the Haltons relocated to Detroit in 1984, America, already deep into recession on President Reagan's watch, was just beginning to rebound. Despite the economy firing back up, work opportunities were still scarce. Diane's brother, Barry Hankerson, had a few businesses in the Midwest, including a food distribution company and some warehouses. So Michael was bringing the family to Detroit so he could work with his brother. So they left New York to go to Detroit because it was just hard for people to find work in New York. So that's how they made their way to Detroit, because Daddy was able to get a job opportunity with his brother, Michael. Barry Hankerson was a former football player turned businessman and politician who eventually worked his way into the music industry through the back door of local TV production. He married Motown's own Gladys Knight in 1974 at the height of her career with the Pips, after helping her to produce a TV special. After 5 years, the two divorced and became entangled in a dramatic custody battle over their son, Shanga Hankerson. At one point, when Shanga was just 2.5 years old, Barry was accused of attempting to kidnap his son. I ain't never heard that story, y'all. An article printed in the March 10th, 1979 edition of the Indianapolis Recorder stated, sources said the couple has a temporary custody order which allows the child to spend one day with his mother and the following day with his father. It was after the day with the father that Hankerson did not return the child. According to news report, Hankerson then called Knight and told her he would defy the court ruling and would keep the child. Shanga was finally returned back home to his mom, while Gladys Knight was already estranged from her ex-husband by the time Aaliyah was born. She still looked at Aaliyah and Rashad like her niece and nephew. When Aaliyah was around 4 years old, her mother realized she had a talent growing within her. It started with a young Aaliyah humming back to music playing in the house. Her tone, even at that age, showed that not only could Aaliyah recognize notes as they were being sung, she could also repeat them herself. Aaliyah then started itching her way into the business. Her family enrolled her in Jesu Catholic Church, and school located on the west side of Detroit. While Jesu was called one of the most influential Catholic parishes in the city of Detroit by former Detroit Free Press writer Patricia Montgomery, who wrote an entire book on the church and school's history. It was also known for its robust theater program. Students of all spanning grades would perform in theater company quality musicals, oftentimes held in larger auditoriums like the 375-person theater in Marygrove College. It was here that Aaliyah got her first break. At 6 years old, she was cast in the school musical of Annie. She had a supporting role as an orphan with one line, and she told the New York Post in July 2001, "You're going to get the paddle. You're going to get the paddle." 3 years later, she turned in 40. She 3 years later, she starred in 42nd Street. Only this time through old grainy video footage of Aaliyah at her rehearsals, she's seen dancing and singing front and center as the directing Susan McGill Anderson's voice is heard saying, "It's wonderful because these kids have no inhibitions." The local news interviewed Aaliyah, then 9, about her role, which she also included leading the song "We're in the Money." And Aaliyah made a joke about her director yelling a lot, though the reporter regarded her as a seasoned little veteran in the local theater circuit. After the show's run, Aaliyah became a local singing fixture, from talent shows and more school productions Hello, such as Hello Dolly and 42nd Street, to small events like weddings and other parties. Aaliyah took part in the in New Detroit Let's see. Aaliyah took part in New Detroit, a racial justice organization that would throw annual events around Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, where Aaliyah would perform mostly covers of Whitney Houston songs. She was also enrolled in vocal training in Detroit, vocal music. She was also enrolled in vocal training with Detroit vocal music teacher Gwendolyn Petty, who later taught at the Detroit Academy of Arts and Sciences. Aaliyah attempted to build upon her acting career when she auditioned in 1989 for the role of kid sister Judy Winslow on ABC's primetime comedy Family Matters. So, Aaliyah auditioned for Family Matters, y'all, which was about a black middle working class family. She didn't land the role, though Aaliyah's first real taste of stardom wasn't far away. So, fun fact, Aaliyah auditioned for Family Matters, but she didn't get the role. CBS's Star Search was one of the earliest examples of what would become the reality competition series of later years. Star Search, a precursor to America's Got Talent, was where acts of all ages competed against one another. It was similar to an amateur hour style show, though ramped up to make the payoff far greater than a pat on the back and 15 minutes of fame. As contestants continued to compete weekly, they would eventually reach a championship show where the grand prize was $100,000 and an air quoted possibility of a future recording contract, putting the star in Star Search. Many legends have lost on that show on to opponents whose careers never saw the light of day. A prime example of that is Beyonce's 1993 loss with her group Girls Time, later morphing into Destiny's Child, to a five-person band called Skeleton Crew. The wounds of that loss run deeply to this day, as Bey used footage of her losing performance for her 2014 single Flawless off her surprise self-titled album in 2013. Justin Timberlake and Christina Aguilera both also lost on Star Search. It was a show that Aaliyah not only was a fan of, but also saw as a game-changing opportunity to enter American households with one short performance. My mother and I watched faithfully, end quote. Aaliyah remarked about Star Search in her interview with Teen People in 1999. Quote, and I always wanted to be on it, end quote. Aaliyah competed against one of the returning Star Search champions, Katrina Abrams, in round one of the 1990 competition. Host Ed McHammond described Aaliyah as a little person with a big voice before announcing her to the stage. At 10 years old, Aaliyah didn't look like her future would be spent in loose jeans and tight tank tops. Her grandmother had sewn her a pretty dress, a black form-fitted top with a white ruffled bottom and a white half blazer. She had on white tights and black shoes with her makeup and hair done elegantly. She sang the Babes in Arms show tune, My Funny Valentine, in a vocal combination of the theatrical version mixed with the Ella Fitzgerald cover. She chose that song because it was one that her mother had sung in the past during her time in theater, and Aaliyah wanted to be just like her. Her performance was dramatic, stage even, where her raw talent is cloaked beneath the obvious preliminary instructions to remain poised and demure while trying to steady her nervously shaking voice. Even when she's interviewed by McMahon, let me see. McMahon, Aaliyah's expressions are very theatrical. Perhaps that was from her previous training, or it's the result of child stars misinterpreting fame as maturity and their this familial networking co-signing it, and their familial network co-signing it. Aaliyah lost on Star Search, like most superstars do. Christina received 4 stars. Aaliyah received 3.25. She shook her head, winning. She shook her winning opponent's hand and left the stage. Aaliyah broke down in tears once she was off camera. You can mask a child with layers of adult leaning decorations, but at the end of the day, they're just a kid. She didn't head home right after her loss. On the contrary, she stayed and watched the show as a spectator and not the winner. Still, Ed McMahon saw something in Aaliyah. In Vibe's August 2001 cover story of Aaliyah, circulated during the time of her death, Ed McMahon spoke on remembering her drive in that moment 11 years prior. There's a thing that you see when somebody walks out on stage, he told writer Hyun Kim. I call it the fire. They got that inner fire, which has nothing to do with the schooling, nothing to do with the teacher, nothing to do with the parents. There is a desire in that person to please the audience. You see it enough, you see enough of it to recognize it. And that's what I saw with Aaliyah. While the loss was upsetting, Aaliyah pushed on. She would ask her mother every day if record labels saw her on television and called the family to sign her. It's an endearing inquiry, but really just showed how, even at 10 years old, she knew what she wanted and was figuring out ways to get it. Having some famous family members didn't hurt either. Despite Gladys Knight's parting with Hankerson's family, she still stayed close to her niece. She arguably saw herself in the young star, considering Knight got her big break at 7 years old, competing on and winning the original amateur hour TV program in 1952. In fact, when Auntie Gladys had her sold out 5 night residency in Las Vegas, at Las Vegas Bally's Casino, she had an 11-year-old Aaliyah accompany her for one of her 5 performances. The two would sing a duet of Believe in Yourself, and Aaliyah had a solo moment performing Home, both from The Wiz. The first night, Aaliyah was so nervous that she stood in one spot on the stage, sang, and got right off. Knight pulled her aside afterwards to offer some encouragement. Knight told me, you got to learn how to move and work in audience. Aaliyah told MTV years later, it was a great learning experience for me. Aaliyah would later credit that string of performances as her greatest training for singing and performing live. From an early age, I knew she had enormous talents and intrinsic gift. Knight spoke of Aaliyah to the BBC News following her passing. When she first performed with me in Las Vegas, she was still quite young, but she already had it. That spark the world would later see and fall in love with. Aaliyah was groomed to be a superstar in the most organic way possible. In the late 80s and early 90s, artists didn't have YouTube to film song covers or posts, nor did they have Instagram or TikTok or any social media for that matter to develop fan followings based upon 15-second clips. Aaliyah was too young for an open mic night, like most rising stars back then who showed up with an acoustic guitar and gumption. Even those instances, how many really make it into the business? What Aaliyah did have were 2 decorated parents who wanted her to achieve her dreams, as they too recognized the intangible something that she had even at such a young age. They also noticed an overgrown maturity. It was hot at 10. I had the little sex appeal working back then, she told the Late Show with Craig Kilborn in 2000. When I was a younger, we were getting me ready to come out in the business. I was looking for agents, so my mother was taking pictures of me. She said, "Yo, she's got this kid. She's got this kind of sex appeal working. It comes through in the pictures and on the camera." She also had her grandmother, Mentis Hicks Hankerson, who supported her vision for stardom as a kid. "If there's anything that inspired me, it's my grandmother," she told the Black Beat magazine in 2001. "She always wanted to hear me sing. She would say, 'Come here and sing. Get here for me. Um, Come here and sing the song Get Here for me.' It made her so happy to hear me sing. So whenever I am down on myself and feeling down, I think of her." Aaliyah later had a dove tattooed on her lower back in honor of her late grandmother who passed in 1998. She also dedicated her final album Aaliyah, to her grandmother. Another person who saw that spark in Aaliyah was her uncle Barry, who by that point was no stranger to the business. Hankerson was already cutting his teeth in theater, producing Ron Milner's gospel musical Don't Get God Started from 1987 to 1988, and One Monkey Don't Stop No Show in 1991. He was managing the Winans, also acting as percussionist while co-producing 1985's Let My People Go, 1987's Decisions with Quincy Jones. While Hankerson was in Chicago holding auditions for Don't Get God Started at the new Regal Theater, a young man was attempting to audition, but the auditions were closed per the security guard at the theater door. The young man desperately sang Amazing Grace for the guard, and one of the actors in the musical overheard. It was Chip Fields known for it. It was Chip Fields known for her part on the '70s sitcom Good Times, and the mother to Kim Fields from The Facts of Life and Living Single. Fields paid the young man $5 to return the next day and sing for Hankerson, along with reading a part of the script. There was one glitch. He didn't know how to read. So the next day when he returned, he played his demo tapes for Hankerson. What Hankerson witnessed was something far greater than a small supporting actor role in an off-Broadway musical. This was a superstar in the making, and Hankerson wanted in on his inevitable success story. The artist was Robert Sylvester Kelly, a 22-year-old Chicago native who started as a street performer after dropping out of high school. He was singing with his keyboard under Chicago's L Metro Transit as morning commuters would drop donations into his hat. It became his full-time job where in an average workday he would take home $400. He later formed the group MGM, which stood for Musically Gifted Men. With a few friends, Robert was the frontman. The group competed on the Star Search-esque show Big Break, hosted by Natalie Cole, and took home the $100,000 grand prize and released the single Why You Wanna Play Me. Their union was ill-fated since the group couldn't agree on money matters, yet their contract was binding. By the time Robert met Barry, he was attempting to untangle himself from MGM. After hearing him sing, Barry slid Robert out of one contract with MGM and into an exclusive management agreement with him. This was in 1990, and that summer, while Robert was at his friend's barbecue, he returned to busker mode and performed for the guests, one of whom was an A&R executive at Jim Jive's named Wayne Williams. One of them was an A&R executive at Jive Records named Wayne Williams. Williams approached him after the performance, and Robert was later signed to Jive Records as the artist R. Kelly. Barry Hankerson negotiated the deal. A year later in 1991, while R. Kelly was working on his debut album, Born into the 90s, with public announcement, Barry brought his 12-year-old niece to the studio to meet him. Quote, I sang for him, Aaliyah told Vibe in 1994, and he liked my sound. Barry Hankerson was hoping to use R. Kelly as leverage to secure a record deal for Aaliyah, since R. Kelly was not only growing in popularity as a star, but also a hit making songwriter producer for other artists. Labels weren't quite ready for Aaliyah, but Aaliyah was ready to be a star. While Barry's son Jomo was in his last year at Pepperdine University, he and his father decided to start a record company once Barry's attempt to lock a record deal for Aaliyah failed. In 1991, Blackground Entertainment was formed, and 2 years later, its flagship artist started working on her debut album. So, Aaliyah met R. Kelly when she was 12 years old, not long after R. Kelly was signed under the label, I guess, with Jive Records, with Berry Gordy. R. Kelly was like 22 then when he got signed. So she was a baby when she met him, 12 years old. And she said, R. Kelly just thought, she was really talented. So it was just kind of, the comments was something nothing you would think anything of, just basic. Oh, wow, you're talented. Child, y'all know how to start. Be real simple. It don't be nothing basic. Y'all even know these predators, they don't usually come out the gate with it like obvious. It be like some little sweet something you'll say to somebody, a minor, a kid, nothing to have somebody raise their eyebrow. But that was the start. She was 12 years old when she met him. What's up? Who's coming to the house? Hey, Suze, what's up? What's up? Cooking but listening. Monique, hey, Monique, hello. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year. Essie Berry, and how Blessing Queen, and to your chat. Hi, Essie. Thanks for joining. I've listened to you several times. It's nice to have you in the building. Thank you for joining. Happy you were able to come across my little channel. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. So, chapter 2, age ain't nothing but a number. I'm going to continue on with this book. Essie, I know you know a lot about the industry. If there is any insight or anything you want to add to the story, insert personal experiences, stories, definitely feel free to place them in the chat. In between chapters, I will be, getting back into the comments, y'all. This book, I'm trying to get through it. Y'all said y'all want it, and I said I'll bring it to you. Happy New Year. Make sure y'all hit the like button for me. It's free. Chapter 2, age ain't nothing but a number. It was basically like listening to an R. Kelly album, but with a little girl singing. This was quoted by Jeff Sledge in Vibe magazine in 2016. So y'all remember the last chapter, Aaliyah, it's like she wanted to, or like she got off. Okay, let me find the words. Y'all remember it was this sex appeal that she talked about as a young girl having. And a young girl don't kind of come up with that kind of on her own. It's something that's it's something that's presented to you, that's told to you that it can help and it can bring attention. So Aaliyah was a young girl that was just paying attention to what got the attention of other people, trying to figure out like, I know I can sing, but there's something missing. I'm trying to get this career. I'm trying to get this popping off. What they talk about is Aaliyah was mature. She was wise beyond her years. And as I was reading that part about just how she was wise and how her parents took notice of this gift in her, it made me even think about my own child. Like, I have 3 children. My youngest is 14. Anyone who talked to my daughter for 2.5 seconds, they instantly feel that way about her. But my daughter's gift is her brain. She's super, super smart, super intelligent. So it's something to where it's like, wow, there is something about her. Like, you just know it's just greatness. There is a light over them. Aaliyah was that type of child. So as they spoke on her, that is how my child is. And this is just not me saying, this is anyone who meets my child. This is her. Some of you all may have experienced that with your own children, someone else's children, where there is a light, there is something special about this person, and you just know they are destined for greatness, and you just wait and see what it is. That was the situation with Aaliyah. She was that type of child. Chapter 2, May 5th, 1993. Aaliyah's diary. Got it. Aaliyah says with a coy giggle on the intro to the title track off her 1994 debut album, "Age Ain't Nothing But a Number," as pen scribbles accents dramatic rolling piano keys like she's about to tell her whole life story. It's a subtle nod to the simplicity of being a teen, documenting life between the pages of some glittery Lisa Frank journal with a unicorn jumping over a rainbow on the cover and the padlock on the side, while simultaneously alluding to the idea that her project was semi-autobiographical. "Age Ain't Nothing But a Number" was a complex work for a number of different reasons. Adhering to the date that Aaliyah herself set on that song, she was 14 years old when the process had begun for piecing together her big debut. While her uncle Barry Hankerson previously couldn't secure an exclusive major label deal for her, his newly minted Blackground Entertainment was about to score her a deal with Kelly's label, Jive Records. R. Kelly released his solo debut album, 12 Play, on November 9th, 1993, his first Jive release. Born into the 90s with his group Public Announcement, was met with mild critical acclaim. Hankerson was executive producer on both projects. Kelly's pre-solo work with Public Announcement made him a prominent fixture in music's teetering New Jack Swing era. Groups like Jodeci were becoming the face of that movement, making sure a de facto figurehead. In Jodeci's case, it was singer Casey Haley, could always saunter to the front of the stage during choreographed performances to woo the ladies with his abs exposed. Kelly was primed to stand out. Excuse me. Kelly was primed to stand out amongst his group members, but he needed to do more. It was his solo album that marked him as a sexual dynamo. 12 Plays cover shows R. Kelly gripping a black cane that extends outward across his baggy black denim, a position proudly extending his cane as a prolific symbol since it's sprouting directly from below his belt. At the end of the cane is a tiny mirror, which used to be a device for young boys to mischievously look up girls' skirts. Child, I didn't know that was the meaning behind that cover. Y'all, that is the infamous cover. Like, in my mind, I can picture that album cover. But it's the mirror at the end of the cane for me. I didn't know folks was doing all that with the canes now. Kelly is inconspicuously staring off into the distance in blackout shades, concealing his eyes, wearing a vest with no shirt on underneath. In the 90s, this was popular for both R&B singers and college men. In fact, historically, black fraternity members would carry canes as accessories to twirl and make thuds to the floor with the tips, adding bass lines to their step show routine. Series like A Different World popularized this black college lifestyle and brought it to television. However, R. Kelly was nearing 27 when this project was released, despite presenting far younger during the album promo with this collegiate flair. 12 Play was brilliantly executed by erotic R&B standards. Songs like Bump and Grind and Sex Me Part 1, Sex Me Part 2 cast sexual innuendos to the side and cut straight to the chase, while Your Body's Calling and It Seems Like You're Ready were more suggestive, leading women to believe he understood their bodies and perhaps better than they did. It was a power play that worked incredibly well for him, especially when he learned to translate it live. While his early performances opening for R&B acts such as Gerald Levert and Glenn Jones during their tours bruised his ego due to low attendance, Kelly started infusing his live sets with more sexuality. The world caught on, and in 1993, 12 Play hit #1 on the Billboard's top R&B hip hop albums chart and #2 on the Billboard's 200. 12 Play's success was enough to prove R. Kelly could craft his hits. So Hankerson knew what he was doing when he introduced the star to his niece. So y'all keep in mind all that we just talked about, or I just read about R. Kelly, and just him goddamn gyrating and gallivanting all across the stage to sell, tickets to shows and albums. This man said, you know what? I need to introduce this one right here to my niece. Remember, the niece was like 12. So this what uncle thought of all this. What my niece said, she needs to meet him because he's doing the absolute most, and my niece trying to get on the scene. So I need to line her up with him. Child, like y'all, this is where when stuff happens to kids and minors, the role that adults play into a lot of the foolishness, it's this part right here. It is this part right here. Right here. All folks see is dollar signs. They ain't seen nothing else. They just seeing dollar signs, including the uncle. Theoretically, the creative pairing of R. Kelly and Aaliyah seemed perfect. Okay. Considering both had strong classic soul foundations, and Aaliyah's goal was to mix that old school sound with the new school, much like what R. Kelly had already done with his career thus far. It was a winning situation, a win-win situation. And when Aaliyah first met R. Kelly at 12 and sang for him, Barry knew that Kelly could mold her into something more successful than anyone had ever imagined. Y'all, this is crazy work. By the time they began working together, Aaliyah was a freshman attending Detroit High School for the Fine and Performing Arts, majoring in dance. The school was on par with Fiorello H. LaGuardia High School of Music and Art and Performing Arts in New York City, also known as the school from the movie Fame. Using her first name as a mononym, Aaliyah took part in school talent shows. She quickly built buzz within her high school. Barry had Aaliyah cutting demos well before that at Detroit's Vanguard Studios, bringing her to record label meetings everywhere from Warner to MCA to take meetings. Aaliyah was also no stranger to jive, as Barry was shopping her to the label at 11 years old, though they were reluctant to sign her so young and wanted to wait a bit longer. Once Aaliyah was a teenager, signed to her uncle's company and working with R. Kelly, who was already considered a talent and a genius under their own roof, jive was all in. R. Kelly was brought on board to both write and produce the entire project, a dream for any label since there were no publishing complications. And again, it would be in the hands of a certified hit maker. Child, so they like, listen, they didn't put her in the hands of a hit maker. So at 14 years old, Aaliyah entered the studio with R. Kelly to create a debut album. Y'all, don't this sound familiar with who is that? Usher, when his mama sent him to go to Diddy's house, to Diddy camp for what, a month or however long he was at that man's house for the purpose of creating a star. Oh, okay. So I guess this is what they do. I guess this is what they was doing back then. You sing your babies off, and you just, I guess you hope for the best for the sake of a bag. Let me continue. It took about 9 months to record Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. Aaliyah recorded some at the top of 1993, but picked it up around May of that same year. During her summer break from school, Aaliyah flew to Chicago from Detroit, where she spent 2 months on and off with R. Kelly to create the project at the nation's largest independent studio. the Chicago Recording Company. It's the same studio where R. Kelly would later record his massive commercial hit, I Believe I Can Fly. They hung out together in Chicago, outside the studio, going bowling, playing video games at arcades, going out to dinner, and watching movies. Y'all, this sound like a courtship. Don't this sound like a courtship? Back in the day when you get courted, when they taking you out, that they picking you up, they opening up doors, they spend a little money on you, buying you popcorns, getting you movie tickets. Child, this is what this man was doing for this young girl. This young girl who was just entering high school. So we gonna say at this point, yeah, she like 14. Keep in mind, y'all, this looking like a courtship. This was at age 14. Crazy, y'all. Let me carry back on this book, y'all. All of the cutesy activities high school sweethearts do on their first date nights. Throughout their time together, R. Kelly would observe Aaliyah and her behaviors, even her interactions with her peers, listening in on their girl talk. He and Aaliyah continued to work on the project until around February of the following year. All of this time together was credited as his technique for gaining inspiration and fodder to write her album material. So he said, listen, I got to quarter. I got to be around it because I got to understand what I'm working with. So when I go in the studio and get this pen on paper, y'all, but he can't read. So when you can't read, that means you can't write either. So I wonder what that experience was like. I guess when he would come up with songs, I guess he would have to sing it and record it, because if you can't read, you can't write. Don't they go hand in hand? So listen, anyway, he said, I got to spend time with her because I need to understand the subject. I got to understand my subject. That was his rationale for spending all this time with her, listening in on her conversations with her girls, just doing just the absolute most. True predatory stuff. Nasty work, I tell you. Nasty. This was nasty work before nasty work became a thing, y'all. R. Kelly, he was like, no, let me tell y'all what nasty work really is. You can't make this ish up, but we getting into it. Happy New Year, y'all. Y'all hit that like button. The product proved he had done his homework in the most unconventional sense. Working with him, he's unpredictable. Aaliyah said of Kelly in an audio interview circulated by Ch.1-3 in 1994. It's not like when you go to the studio and we have a song written out and we just go in and we just sing it through. Really, this whole album came off the top of his head. It had to. Hell, he can't read or write. So y'all, he had to just be in there just singing up whatever that came to head, because he couldn't write it on pen. She'd never experienced somebody not writing some ish out, because remember, she know how to read and write. I'm sure at this time she ain't have a clue that this grown man didn't know how to read and write. So, but he just up in the studio singing lullabies to him. Child. Well, we'll just go to the music, and he'll tell me to say something and sing it, and I'll sing it. If we like it, we keep it. If we don't, we don't. If we don't, we won't. It's really a special kind of way we do that. It's something that's not written out and planned. It's something that really happens. Hell, he didn't have no other way to do it. He couldn't read or write. When the promotional copies of the album circulated to the press and the music critics, the back cover showed a picture of Aaliyah with R. Kelly. Aaliyah is grinning in red. Aaliyah is grinning in red lipstick and a white bandana, cupping her hands across R. Kelly's bald head. He's smirking and wearing his usual vest with no shirt on underneath. They both have on matching sunglasses. The back cover reads, "Age ain't nothing but a number," was written and produced by R. Kelly, specially for Aaliyah. Yes, they included those typographical errors. So I guess it was supposed to be saying specifically for Aaliyah, but child, I guess R. Kelly wrote it specially. He wrote the word specially, and they kept it in there. It also reveals a release date of June 14th, but since the music video for Back and Forth became an MTV rotation darling, Jive opted to push the album up 3 weeks early. On May 24th, 1994, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number was released. On the cover, Aaliyah is up close, within focus, leaned up against a white wall with her face turned towards the camera. She's dressed in all black with a beanie, blacked out shades, a black hoodie from 90s fashion staple Carl Kanai, and a leather vest. Out of focus in the background stands R. Kelly wearing the same leather vest with nothing on underneath, staring longingly at Aaliyah and leaning his head on the top of his omnipresent black cane. He too is wearing blacked out shades. What was once regarded as symbolic imagery of a mentor watching his protege flourish has taken on new meaning over the years. In the upper right hand corner of the album cover is Aaliyah's name written phonetically Aaliyah, since she was still a newbie and people struggled with pronouncing her name correctly. The project was expertly sequenced by former Jive A&R executive Jeff Sledge to allow for a non-stop playing experience where the goal was to start at the intro and end at the final track, I'm Done. With 12 songs, the album cuts straight to the point. R. Kelly's fingerprints are all over the project, with the exception of Aaliyah's cover of the Isley Brothers, At Your Best, You Are Love. I love that song. That's one of my favorite songs by her. But even there, when the song was released as a single with the video, R. Kelly produced it, touted as the remix. His influence was apparent throughout. It was basically like listening to an R. Kelly album, but with a little girl singing, Sledge told Vibe in 2016. From the top to the bottom, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number is the perfect mid-90s R&B album. It adheres to everything that made that era great, part soul, part hip-hop, with flecks of new jack swing. It is, in fact, R. Kelly's album sung by a little girl. That little girl, however, was portrayed as far older, and we're only reminded of her age in small doses on the project. Spending enough time with such a young girl could have articulately given R. Kelly an advantage to write breezy tracks about young love and growing up. He instead took it in another direction in movements where the project was more seeped in Aaliyah rebelling against her age rather than embracing it. There were only flecks of innocence sprinkled throughout an adult leaning project, when in reality it should have been the other way around. Y'all, this makes me kind of want to listen to the music again, just to, you know how like at the time you listen and you vibe into a music and you vibe into something, and then you later learn some information about maybe what was going on with the writer at the time or the singer, and you learn about the meaning behind that song and that project. So you kind of got to go back and re-listen to it to kind of take it in and be like, hell no. Like, to me, I feel that's what you got to do probably with the album Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. That's the homework, honor students. Get into that album. I'm sure you can go to YouTube, type in that, that album, the songs from there, and just listen to it and just take in what all that we didn't talked about and read, what I've read, and like take in the lyrics. You take in the lyrics. Tracks like Throw Your Hands Up have lighter messages woven into the lyrics, like, if you're not down with the crack, throw your hands up, while lines like those err on the side of cheesy. It's really the only reminder of Aaliyah's age, since she was still an early teen on the project. And the Just Say No initiative and the Dare campaign were still popular in middle schools and high schools during that time period. Another young artist, Tia Hawkins, provides guest vocals and ad-libs on this track and a few others. Hawkins was around 16 when the songs were recorded. So she's 14, y'all. I have my daughter who I was speaking on. She's 14. I can't even imagine her just being engulfed in the world of some grown a man and him talking about, listen, we got to spend time together so I can understand you and I can do this project, because this is the only way I can do it. I got to be able to sniff your perfume and see you put your lip gloss on in order for me to kind of channel who you are to get these lyrics together. The hustle, y'all, the hustle. The album feels light and airy, filled with young love. It's no wonder why both R. Kelly and Aaliyah spent so much time together in Chicago that prior summer, hanging out and having fun. The album perfectly captures that spirit of a summertime love story. It speaks of uncertainty, flirtation, gaining confidence, moving forward with cautious optimism, and eagerly solidifying love. Only this story is about a 14-year-old girl and a 26-year-old man. Child, let me just throw the whole book across the room. Let me just throw the whole book across the room. But here's the thing, another fact. Back with the Usher, when Usher went to stay at Diddy's house, who was that he was lined up with? One of them big L.A. Reid. I think L.A. Reid, he the one sent Usher to go stay with Diddy for the summer because the assignment was, hey, I need you to give him some of that extra sauce, turn him into a superstar. He got the vocals, but there's something missing. There's something missing. That was what it was with Aaliyah. Again, she got the vocals, but there's something missing. So with both Aaliyah and Usher, they were sent off to go spend time with these, now that we know, predators. And the ironic part about it is, coming off of both of those children, spending time with these adult men, they produce some of the greatest work ever. You see what I'm saying? Because after Usher came back from spending time with Diddy, Usher, his flavor, he was just on a whole. Basically, I read that L.A. Reid was like, when Usher came back home and they seen that music, that project that was put out as a result of him spending time with Diddy, L.A. Reid said he felt like he knew he did the right thing when he sent, because he knew Diddy was going to add that extra sauce that was missing. But we got to think of what is coming along with that. Because yes, Diddy and R. Kelly, we ain't going to take away that they are very talented. These are their God-given gifts, but they're also very sick. So not even though these young kids produced and had these crazy great projects, think about what came along with it. What came along with them getting those successful albums that summer. Because see, both of them was spending time with their predators during the summer when school was out. But I just want to point that out. I just want to point that out because they said, look, Age Ain't Number, the number was like the best album ever. But y'all, we're learning about how we got here. How did we get to that album? Was it worth it? Like, it took all of that to get here for this project. All right, then you can keep that number. You can keep it. I don't even want it. Y'all. That's why I said, y'all, we got to get into folks' story and learn the background because it can help us to understand what's playing out before us. This is a mess. Welcome. Happy New Year, y'all. Happy New Year. Make sure you hit that like button for your girl. I appreciate it. Where we left off at, y'all, because I had to go on a rampage. So remember, she's 14. He's 26 at this time. They spending all this time together working on this project, her first album. In the liner notes, Aaliyah thanks R. Kelly as her mentor, best friend, and producer. She didn't call this man her best friend. Hell, she done spent the whole damn summer with the man. She went with Keisha, Lisa, Diane, Nicole, doing the stuff that girls do. She was hanging around with him. He done morphed into the best friend. Guess what? He done now became her everything. Remember, we just did the interview. We watched the live. Some of y'all, if y'all was here with us last night, bringing in the new year, I reacted to Drea Kelly, R. Kelly's ex-wife, and she talked about her toxic relationship with R. Kelly. If you were not here for the live, you haven't caught the replay, catch the replay. But I say that to say, when she met R. Kelly, her whole life got wrapped up into him as well. He will consume you. Just like, so this is the two things both of these ladies had in common. This man consumed their whole world, their whole life. They didn't have nothing going on outside of him. That's what came with the territory, with aligning yourself with him. It's almost like an all or nothing. Like, okay, in order for you to be over here, you got to close off everything else. You can't be over there hanging with your girlfriends. You can't be spending too much time with your family. You got to be over here. You got to be putting this work in. It's the manipulation. It's the mind games. That's the control. The ranking bookend by the mentor. Let me see. The ranking bookend by the mentor and producer is only a red flag, though peeling back the layers of the album reveals something far more sinister than what the radio allowed. Back and Forth is a clear hit, bouncing through synths and heavy drums as Aaliyah is talking about going to the club while while R. Kelly commands in the background, "Let me see you go back. Now let me see you go forth." These instructions on 12 pay would theoretically be perceived as sexual directions. Why? But I said, y'all, we need to go back and re-listen to these songs. Cause I ain't know that's what Back and Forth was alluding to. They done linked y'all back and forth to the song 12 Play. Students, I'm gonna need for y'all to go listen to 12 Play, and I'm gonna need for you to listen to Back and Forth. They are saying there is a connection to that. Thank you, Julia, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Y'all, homework. Listen to 12 Play, listen to Back and Forth. They say there's the meaning Back and Forth is linked to what 12 Play alludes to. Oh, Lord Jesus. And here he is inserting them into Aaliyah's first single about dancing at a party with her friends. The album track, "No One Knows How to Love Me Quite Like You Do," opens with Aaliyah and Tia at the studio talking about a boy named Chris when R. Kelly bursts into the room to get Aaliyah back in the booth to work on music. His ad-libs on that song are repeated over and over. "Leah, you're the only one for me." Remember I say how them predators, they'll take you away from everybody else, because remember they like vulture, like they energy vampires. They suck the life out of you, the energy out of you. This is what this man was doing to this baby, this young girl. She a baby at this age that she was at. I have a daughter that age. She's a child. He's like, "Listen, you don't need to be talking about nobody, thinking about nobody but me. Get back to work." That's basically what he was saying. Other songs have little innuendos and overgrown flirtatious sublets, indicative of the fact that these were not lyrics for Aaliyah to be singing at her young age. The person wielding the pen made millions off of songs about straight up sex. So while R. Kelly could create purely sanitized songs on the album, check the song "Young Nation," where Aaliyah really just carries on about being young. The moment there's any reference to love, he forcibly inserts a reference to sex. It's almost as if it's beyond his control and there's just an involuntary blurting in the song. Take the track "I'm So Into You," where the midst of cheeky banter about checking out a guy, Aaliyah sings the line, "Take control of me, fulfill my fantasies." What you're 14. What fantasies? What I'm confused. What fantasies you trying to fulfill? Y'all, at this point, he done got all into this baby head, because she's just a baby. He done got all into this baby's head. You can't tell her she ain't somebody grown woman. Listen, you can't tell her she ain't ready. Seems like you're ready, because remember, R. Kelly said, "Seems like you're ready." You can't tell her she ain't ready. Sad, disgusting. Like, it's a lot of adjectives you can use to describe what's going on here. The most glaring example by far is "Age Ain't Nothing But a Number." On the album's title track, Aaliyah is portrayed as the instigator, luring an older man as she sings about him knocking and her letting him in. Throughout the song, she's asserting that her age means very little in the way of experience. A part of the song where Aaliyah sings, "Cause tonight we're gonna go all the way," was later changed during some live performance to "Cause tonight we're going to chill round the way," perhaps due to the obviously suspicious lyrics, again penned by R. Kelly. 3 years later, a lawsuit was filed against Aaliyah, specifically by music publisher Windswept Pacific. The agency alleged that Aaliyah copied the 1978 track What You Won't Do for Love by Bobby Caldwell. Ironically, the suit was filed against Aaliyah only, And years after she stopped working with R. Kelly, who both wrote and produced that song, Caldwell was ultimately given credit for the interpolation of his song. I didn't know that there was a lawsuit against Aaliyah for her doing that song. So I guess she sampled it, and I guess they didn't purchase it, she didn't get permission or whatever. So Caldwell eventually seemed like, won that lawsuit years later. The album version of At Your Best, You Are Love encapsulates the remnants of Aaliyah's innocence through her delicate vocals. Her candy-coated falsetto shows that there's more to her range than she was offered to express on the rest of the project. It's here that you remember the young girl from Motor City raised on Motown. Her soulful roots were strong. She wanted to be a singer, perhaps even more than she wanted to be a star. This version, is the heart of who Aaliyah was at the time, and it was the only part that R. Kelly didn't have complete control over, as it was originally an Isley Brothers song. In interviews, Aaliyah herself says it's her favorite track on the album. So that's the one that R. Kelly basically didn't touch. So that was the one where she basically was able to be authentically her and sing the song the way she wanted to without having any of that other extra ish that we just talked about going into it. And that happens to be her favorite song. Wow. Y'all, homework, check out, listen to that song again, At Your Best. And maybe that's why it's, probably like my favorite song by her, one of my favorites. Because it's the innocence, it's truly her, and it wasn't, it wasn't tampered with. R. Kelly didn't touch it. R. Kelly appears on 5 of the 14 songs on the album, including the bonus Mr. Lee and R. Kelly remix to Back and Forth. On one of the first songs recorded for the album, Old School, R. Kelly dedicates the entire third verse to telling his career story from listening to old records to waiting tables and hoping for his big break. He even sends a note to Barry Hankerson on the verse, till I met the BH and bust down a cappella to him. He said, you got talent and you're going places. It was a poorly placed homage, though only further proved how so little of the project's direction was within Aaliyah's grasp. The only thing she could preserve was her undeniable ability to take someone else's musical version, interpret it, and somehow make it her own. That would prove to be her superpower throughout her entire career. In the midst of Aaliyah's own release, R. Kelly had her slide in 2 remixes for his projects, Summer Bunnies and His and Hers extended remix for his hit, Your Body's Calling. These came within months of Aaliyah's album release, and again, while she was only 15 on a grown man's love songs, she continued to show her versatility. Age Ain't Nothing But a Number arrived at an ideal time during music. The year 1994 had a mixed bag of R&B hits, leaving room for some innovation. Since so much of what was being pushed through the music industry pipeline was beginning to sound formulaic, despite the slew of career artists searching for reinvention, while groups like Boyz II Men topped the charts with their fan favorite hits like I'll Make Love to You and Jodeci with Cry for You, TLC was swapping condoms on their clothing for silk pajamas with Crazy Sexy Cool. Janet Jackson's Janet. All right, child, that was a year of great music. Y'all, I was here for all of them songs, all them albums. So that was definitely, y'all, this is the early 90s. So they said we talking about like 94, early going into like mid 90s. These were the people who were popping. I was in high school. I graduated in 99. So I remember that era. That was a good time for R&B music. Janet Jackson's Janet arrived the year before. So Miss Jackson was still riding high off her latest reinvention as a soulful, sexy bohemian. The same successful stability can be said for Mariah Carey, since Music Box dropped in 93, and she was still surfing that wave a year later. Newcomers were being added to the fold too. Brandy, Escape, Brownstone, Changing Faces, and Blackstreet were all introduced in 94. Child, none of these people today got nothing on any of them people who we just named. Y'all know it. Music just ain't the same. When you know, you know. When you know, you know. Aaliyah not only fit into that roster, but she also stood out. While she fell in line at times with the New Jack Swing era sound, there was still something forward thinking about her vocals. She wasn't belting, but her coos were so unique and smooth. This offered her the balance of being very in the now, but not completely written off as a trend. Many artists of that era learned too heavily upon what was current, and within a few short years, their careers were over. So let me see. Many artists of that era leaned too heavily upon what was current, and within a few short years, their careers were over. Not Aaliyah. She was soulful, but not too intimidating. Pop, yet not too mainstream. R&B without being too niche. A flair for hip hop gave her an edge, which again set her apart from some of her peers, like the aforementioned Brandy, whose big hats and childish suspenders, as she sang saccharine love songs, created a do no wrong air to her. That might work for a young audience, but certainly not for the adults. Brandy, however, was also creating age appropriate music, which can inevitably narrow her lane. Aaliyah could serve any listener, and she did so very well. What they say, sex sells. Sex sells. Aaliyah could serve any listener, and she did it very well. Like the born actor she was, she knew just when to turn one side of herself on and the other side of herself off. It was felt both in music and in interviews. Critics liked the project enough, mainly for where they felt Aaliyah existed within the Black female R&B artist paradigm of the 90s. Billboard described it as essential for those fiending for Mary J. Blige style hip hop and R&B, while Dimitri Ehrlich of Entertainment Weekly remarked, "Imagine En Vogue packed into one teenage body and packed by hip hop, some Bengali hip hop, R. Kelly, and you have Aaliyah." Dimitri also ran a comparison to Blige, though he argued that Aaliyah's vocals were more agile than Mary's. However, once later lined up against her work with Timberland, Missy Elliott, and Static Major, Aaliyah's first album loses its luster after witnessing her potential. Once she's washed from R. Kelly's artfully soiled hands. In the new Rolling Stone album guide, it's argued that Aaliyah's debut was overshadowed by the later controversy involving its collaborators. Age Ain't Nothing But a Number reached the top 20 on the Billboard 200 at number 18 and number 3 on the Billboard Top R&B and Hip Hop Albums chart, with the two singles Back and Forth and At Your Best You Are Loved being certified gold. When Back and Forth reached number 1 on the Hot R&B Hip Hop Song chart, it ironically knocked R. Kelly's single Your Body's Calling from its chart-topping pedestal. To date, the album has gone double platinum, now moving over 3 million units in the United States and gold in the UK, Japan, and Canada. So Aaliyah did numbers. She did numbers. Her song even knocked R. Kelly's hit song "Your Body's Calling." I remember I like that song too. Her song knocked that one out the way too. Beyond sales, the album showed promise in a rising star whose inherent mystique and vocal capabilities were the real star of the show. Everything else was purely an added bonus. Her promotional photo showed a budding fashion maven, as Aaliyah's dark shades, cutoff tops, and baggy jeans were first introduced during this era. The album's music videos remained in line with that specific aesthetic as well. Director Millicent Shelton, whose career started as the wardrobe assistant on Spike Lee's 1989 film, Do the Right Thing, was the music video director for all three of the album's singles, Back and Forth, At Your Best You Are Loved, and Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. Back and Forth has kids and R. Kelly hanging out and dancing, with Aaliyah taking center stage. The camera then switches to scenes of Aaliyah and R. Kelly in matching tracksuits sitting on the bleachers. The video for At Your Best You Are Loved shows Aaliyah singing into an old school Kellogg telephone in a booth while R. Kelly waits for her in the car. The two then start step dancing with each other against a brick overlay before pivoting to the obligatory hip hop music video parking lot scene. The Age Ain't Nothing But a Number video travels along the same vein with the parking lot pose shots. The one thing all of the videos have in common is they all possesses a vignette effect where Aaliyah is almost haloed as the color schemes change from warm earth tones into black and white. The visuals seem to reflect Aaliyah's personality. She was very quiet and she was very shy, Shelton said on BET's TV special Aaliyah, One in a Million in 2011. A lot of people thought she was wearing the sunglasses because there was something wrong with her eyes. But she was wearing the sunglasses because it helped calm her down because she was nervous. Shelton remarked how Aaliyah was kind to everyone on set, from directors to extras, yet she also made note of how Aaliyah had a distinctive ability to embody her music early on. A lot of new performers that I work with, you have to really teach them how to sell their own song, she continues. Aaliyah, you didn't have to teach. I mean, she was a natural, and she just turned it on. While the music videos took a deep dive in Aaliyah's musical personality, behind the scenes, they reflected something else to some of the people in the room during filming. April Walker, Kenya Warfield Rain, and Nicole Cola Walker of famed Heritage Lifestyles clothing line and styling company, Walker Wear, styled Aaliyah and R. Kelly for her Back and Forth video. Prior to the video, the Walker Wear team was brought on as image consultants for both the video and also the album's promotional photos. Quote, April and I started with the Aaliyah record, Kenya remembers. We were given an unofficial copy of the album to be able to hear where she was going with her music. They went back and shared it with Cola and began building upon where we thought her image would go and how we plan to take it there, Kenya says. The next week, Cola and I had a meeting with Aaliyah and her management team, and that is when we met R. Kelly. The meeting included Aaliyah team, family, mother, father, brother, Barry, and Jomo, plus R. Kelly. At the meeting, he pretty much took over, Kenya says of R. Kelly. He was the influence. They already had an image set for her. The image per R. Kelly was a girl from around the way in Chicago. When they questioned his vision for the young artist, he snapped, what do the girls in your hood wear? He then requested that the Walker Wear team purchase an Air Jordan sweatsuit that was several sizes too big for Aaliyah. He wanted multiple dark sunglasses and a focus on her bare midsection with her pants slung low. In essence, he wanted Aaliyah to be dressed just like him in female form. We kind of joke that we're just going to dress her like Jodeci, Kenya says with a laugh, but we decided that it was best that we mimic his look for her, but put a little feminine touch to that look. Kenya and Cola were then scheduled to meet Aaliyah and her team at Los Angeles Beverly Center shopping mall. The two put some looks together, making sure Kelly's request dark sunglasses were paired with each outfit. When Aaliyah, R. Kelly, and the rest of her team arrived, they came with bags of clothing, having already chosen the looks for her. They took the rest of our budget, Kim recalls. During the meeting, R. Kelly put out a leather vest. During the meeting, R. Kelly pulls out a leather vest from a plastic bag. It's a vest created by the same designer who made his infamous ones that he would wear on his album covers and on tour. Only this vest had a license plate on the backside with his home state, Illinois, and Aaliyah sprawled across it. Our jaws dropped. Cola says, we were at a loss of words. Not only was it peculiar that Aaliyah would be rocking a license plate from R. Kelly's stomping grounds across her backside like you would on a vehicle, but the concept of wearing a license plate at all made no sense to the fashion team. Beyond looking like a symbol of ownership, it really didn't fit Aaliyah's vibe. Aaliyah was adamant about wearing that, says April Walker, founder of Walker Wear. I felt it was very country, so to speak. We always felt like it was important to keep the artists authentic to who they were. But this was such a sticking point. So we were like, let's just go with it. The vest made its grand appearance in the back and forth video a few days later. So I guess we got to look at that back and forth video. So she got a vest on, and I guess it has, on the back of the vest, it has R. Kelly's home state, Illinois, and the name Leah on it. Y'all, this was R. Kelly. Listen, R. Kelly was a singer, a songwriter, a stylist. he was wearing all the hats. You couldn't tell his non-reading. Child, this man, they didn't let this man just come over and just take over the game just because he could hold a note. The video has some parts shot in Detroit and was partially filmed on Aaliyah's 15th birthday at a gymnasium in Los Angeles. The next day, the infamous Northridge earthquake hit and production was halted, resuming once the coast was clear. The earthquake reached 6.7 on the Richter scale, sending violent rumbles throughout Southern California and causing multi-billion-dollar damage. The earthquake was so intense that R. Kelly claimed to the ladies of Walker Wear that he slept in his car out of fear once the earthquake struck at 4:30 a.m. When the aftershocks of the earthquake shook the trailers on the location for the video later that day, everyone was a little triggered. On set, the chemistry between R. Kelly and Aaliyah was shockingly palpable. Kelly would watch her as her makeup was being applied and her hair being done, rubbing her back and telling her how beautiful she looked and how she was going to be the best. Aaliyah would look up at him with doting eyes. Anytime we asked for her opinion, the response we would get was, whatever Robert says. Kimya adds, her whole family was around, so it was interesting how they can say they didn't know anything. Listen, that woman like, listen, we was able to peep game, we here just being stylists. Her whole family was around. They was here before us, during this process, after us. Ain't no way these folks did not peep what was going on. But y'all, I say, when people see dollar signs, because at this point, you looking at Aaliyah, that's dollar signs. You look at R. Kelly, dollar signs. All else just is non-existent. It just don't even matter. It do not even matter, because guess what? The money is coming in. The money is coming in. Everyone was so comfortable with all of the interaction that was going on. A particular scene in the video shows R. Kelly and Aaliyah wearing matching red, white, black tracksuits. That was a very Chicago thing, Cola remarks. Couples would wear matching outfits. Some of them still do. When they went home after filming, Kimya and Cola agreed that their instincts told them there was more going on between R. Kelly and Aaliyah than just friendship and mentorship. It wasn't something we kept thinking about, Kimya explains, but once the world found out about them, let's just say we weren't surprised. Listen, they were like, listen, we peep gang, we see what's going on. They was able to peep it because guess what? Their involvement had no bearing on Aaliyah or like anybody else as far as with the money. So because they didn't have like the financial ties to Aaliyah or R. Kelly, they was able to see some ish and call a thing because it was almost like they was on the outside looking in. So there was no investment there for them to have to play crazy. They just kind of like strangers stepping on the scene. Like, y'all don't see this. You know, sometimes you feel like you're in a twilight zone. You seeing some issue, you peeping game, but ain't nobody around you seeing. And you like, how y'all ain't seeing this? Houseway, you say you missed that too? Oh, shut the front door. Call police. How you miss all of that? This is the conversation that these women are having. They are in utter confusion because it is so obvious to them. It's so obvious. But meanwhile, everybody else walking around like they got now and what's the movie? Get Out. Delusion. Listen, this delusion. It's the delusion for me. The Walker Wear team was called right after they wrapped up back and forth to style R. Kelly for his Your Body's Calling video, which Kenya saw as a deliberate attempt to quiet them with more work. So they seen these ladies peep game. They were like, oh shit, we need to hush them up. We need to try to see if we can keep them silenced with money. You see, because they know if they kept silence through money, so they feel like, hey, this is how it worked. It worked for me, so it should work with these ladies, these designers. Let's throw some money at them and see if we can kind of keep them quiet, because this is what we need to keep this. Listen, everybody need to keep getting paid. Don't nobody need to say nothing. Don't nobody need to say nothing. So they started throwing work at these two young ladies. It felt like if we keep it going, they won't say anything, she expresses. A few years later, when Walker Wear attempted to work again with Aaliyah, they were shut down because they previously worked with R. Kelly. They said if you worked with R. Kelly, you couldn't work with her, April Walker explains. We had already worked with both of them, so I didn't even understand that. So it sounds like once probably Aaliyah maybe had left R. Kelly and they wanted to work with Aaliyah, the new people around Aaliyah was like, nah, anybody that was around during that era of R. Kelly, nah, we don't want you around, because at this point, they already know, people know at what happened. So they don't really want to bring on anybody on Aaliyah's team who was basically around during that R. Kelly era, because that means, guess what? They know some stuff. So we just, we want to act like nothing happened. So therefore, we need to have new people around her who wasn't around during that time. You understand what I'm saying? So they telling this lady, not these ladies, no, you worked with R. Kelly, so you can't work here. But we worked with Aaliyah too. We worked with both of them. What are you saying? What are you talking about, sir? I'm confused. So these ladies are confused at this point. All awkward witnessing of an inappropriate dynamic aside, they too saw something in Aaliyah. She definitely was a star, Kenya said enthusiastically. When they were shooting that video, you can tell she was a natural. She didn't even need R. Kelly. Contrary to their opinions, R. Kelly was front and center for every part of the process. Promotion for Age Ain't Nothing But a Number was often conducted by Aaliyah and R. Kelly together. The two were often dressed identically, at times in flannels with Disney's Mickey Mouse logo or matching shirts wearing Looney Tune characters Pepe Le Pew. The predator skunk who would attempt to romance a female black cat with a fraudulently painted white stripe. Other times they were both dressed in all black with their eyes concealed by those dark sunglasses. Their jewelry was also strategically matched. Aaliyah was often spotted during album promos wearing a gold chain of a silhouette of R. Kelly on his 12-play cover, alternating with a chain of another Looney Tunes character, the Tsunamian Devil. In his Vibe Winter 1994 cover, R. Kelly is described wearing a Sumanian Devil chain, which he says is lucky. Aaliyah later sported a Pepe Le Pew chain well into the recording of her second album. During their interviews together, R. Kelly would code switch from grown mentor to boyish sidekick at a drop of a hat, while Aaliyah would hover between doe-eyed, ingenuine, and knowing minx. Their combined wavering maturity allowed them to meet somewhere in the middle, making their disparity in age almost forgettable. Their banter was playful, a little less brother and sister, and more like handsome big brother of your best friend, leaving ample room for the unknown. That is until it was made known. On August 31st, 1994, Aaliyah and R. Kelly were married at the Sheraton Suites in Rosemont, Illinois. The marriage certificate shows R. Kelly at his real age of 27 and Aaliyah's age as 18, 3 years older than she actually was. Decades later, in 2019, it was reported that R. Kelly allegedly bribed a government employee from his home state, Illinois, for a fake ID reflecting Aaliyah at a legal age. The marriage certificate was registered in Illinois as well, so it would all add up. News of their marriage circulated, though they continued to deny it, even when further rumors started about Aaliyah being seen in Chicago, coming in and out of R. Kelly's house and walking his dog named 12 Play. Kelly also bought Aaliyah her own puppy during the album run, which she named Tour. I was a writer at MTV News then, and I called the Cook County Clerk's office and got a copy of the marriage certificate, which said she was 18, even though she was not. She was 15. So Kurt Loder could break the story. Famed journalist Torre wrote in Rolling Stone in 2018, Kurt Loder then broke the story in a televised MTV News break. Hip-hop star R. Kelly did indeed marry his protege, the 15-year-old singer Aaliyah Halton. Loder reported Kelly stated his age at 27, 2 years older than he previously claimed to be, and Aaliyah produced 2 pieces of ID that appeared to show her to be 18. Loder continued to say that Aaliyah's age was already publicly a point of contention since she dropped from the Budweiser Superfest tour that year due to her being under 18. So there's really no way that anyone could allege that they weren't aware that she was a minor. Vibe magazine was the first to publish the story in print, dropping the bomb about the marriage officially in their December 1994, January 1995 issue, where they printed a copy of the false documentation that reflected the two as being married. On the cover of the issue was R. Kelly with the giant words, "The sex, the soul, the sales, and the scandalous marriage to teenage superstar Aaliyah." Beneath his face and his name. In the article, the writer, Vibe editor-in-chief, Danielle Smith, tells a quick story of how an anonymous caller phoned the Vibe offices to say that the relationship between Aaliyah and R. Kelly was sick. And when she was asked her name, her response was Miss Snoop with the scoop. The marriage was eventually annulled in February of 95 by Aaliyah's parents, and Aaliyah later had the marriage record expunged in 97. When the file was sealed shut, case closed, in future interviews, she denied that it ever happened. I'm not married. That's all I really want to say about it. I like to handle the scandal. I don't let the scandal handle me, she told writer Chris X for Vibe in 1996. I don't like to go into the details on it because it was a very scandalous thing. I don't like to go into details and add fuel to the fire. I had a lot of drama back then, and I don't really want any more. And out of respect for my family and what I went through, I just answer, I'm not married at all. Her father came the closest to even confirming it on her family's side in an interview with ID Magazine in March 1995 issue, where he tells the interview, Frank Broughton, I'd rather not comment on that. To be honest with you, it was a situation that happened. It's gone now. She's getting on with her life. There was no real shock at learning that there was a supposed relationship between the two. It was really the marriage that threw everyone off. Earlier in the summer of 94, Aaliyah and R. Kelly both appeared on BET's Video Soul Gold, and the host almost immediately inquired about their connection to each other. It was a fair question, one that everyone was wondering during that time. Everybody just seemed to think that y'all are either girlfriend and boyfriend or cousins or friends. Let's get the record straight, the co-host Sherry Carter says, to which Aaliyah responds, well, no, we're not related at all. We're just very close. This is my best friend, and this is my very best friend in the whole wide world. Prior to her responding, R. Kelly mimicked a nervous, hot under the collar gesture and quipped, I better go get me a little Jeep. I better go get me a white Jeep. Uh-oh. Kelly was referencing the then recent event on the evening of June 17, 1994, where O.J. Simpson hopped in his white Ford Bronco and peeled down the freeway in Los Angeles for 2 hours while the cops chased him in an effort to arrest him for alleged murder of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson. In essence, Kelly was insinuating that he was fleeing from guilt. That joke would quickly speak volumes following this televised moment. In the same interview, Aaliyah is asked about her age. That's a secret, she says coyly, placing her index finger to her lips. Shh. For the first year of her career, and arguably those thereafter, Aaliyah did exist in this world of ambiguity. She defied age, presenting as far older yet still holding on to pieces of girlish giddiness. She defied race with long straight hair and light skin, a combination of Jamaican roots mixed with Native American blood and an Arabic name to boot, and she defied the confines of gender as her baggy clothes were paired with a fully made up face, making her visually the best of both worlds. Aaliyah was unclassifiable. While that made her both mysterious and alluring, the lack of disclosure of her age and early on severed to implicate her once everything involved R. Kelly was made public. The first question isn't whether there's foul play happening, it's where are the girl's parents? The sped up maturity is presumed to be the product of a young girl's upbringing, not the older man who kicked it into overdrive. There's also this age-old tale of young girls wishing to grow up too fast, again placing little blame on the man who helped her get there. During that interview, there was a bigger debate of whether or not Aaliyah was concealing an eye deformity beneath her dark glasses than there was over whether it's proper if it's proper to call an unrelated grown man your best friend in the whole wide world. Music has a tangled history with older men and younger women finding romance with little consequences. Elvis Presley was 25 and Priscilla Belu, later Presley, was 14 when they first got together. Celine Dion was 12 years old when she began being managed by Renee Angelou, who was 38. They eventually married, so who really knows when their romantic involvement started? Rolling Stones bassist Bill Wyman was 14 years old when he started dating 13. Rolling Stones bassist Bill Wyman was 47 years old when he started dating 13-year-old Mandy Smith. And of course, who could forget 23-year-old Jerry Lee Lewis marrying his 13-year-old cousin Myra Williams. So clearly, y'all, in this industry, this has been a thing for a very, very long time. And what we're seeing playing out today is that, it's just still happening. This has been happening. It just seems like back then, it didn't get the attention, the traction like it gets today. And I think probably because we're in the era of the internet, social media, so things kind of take off, catch on like wildflower, and can be spread more easily than back in the day when social media wasn't a thing. So you pretty much were kind of relying on just having one-on-one conversations with people about topics, or y'all back in the day, we read the magazines, watch MTV, BET. So it just took longer for things to circulate opposed to today with the era of social media and how far the internet has progressed. A more recent example is reality TV star and young mogul Kylie Jenner's relationship with Tyga. The two went public when Jenner was 17 and Tyga was 25, though footage has shown the two being flirtatious when Kylie was as young as 14. That's the effect of being followed. That's the effect of being followed around by cameras your entire life. These instances are all suspicious, some even downright illegal. At face value, the relationship between R. Kelly and Aaliyah was just another case of history repeating itself. When two artists work together extensively to create art, feelings sometimes seep into the work. The creative and romantic pairing seems almost idyllic, where in one breath you exchange meaningful glances and the next you're sharing a love for whatever it is you create, be it songs, paintings, whatever. Take John Lennon and Yoko Ono, or even Frida Kahlo or Diego Rivera, Lauryn Hill, Wyclef Jean. The story is retold in so many different versions, all with a similar theme. They came for the art and stayed for each other. Likewise, the dynamic between a grown male pop star and his teenage core fan base is always tricky. In the 1990s, we saw it happen time and time again, where an artist like Kevin Richardson of the Backstreet Boys was 27 during the group's prime time, singing love songs to 13-year-olds. It creates the veil of illusions where both the artist and the fans are ageless through the music. That's the relationship the music industry creates for album sales and global popularity. It doesn't matter how disturbing it plays out in real life. This is the business of selling a fantasy. Men with chest hair and possible grays in their goatees are gyrating for girls licking their braces, licking their braces and adjusting their training bras. It's capitalism in theory, criminal in reality. Aaliyah was the median age of a typical fan who would lust after an older R&B star, R. Kelly, and was in fact a bona fide star when they met. So combine the fandom with the creative partnership and the sparks were bound to fly. At least that's how it was played out in the media. The idea of getting too close through the duration of creating an album became a narrative. Their relationship was almost normalized with the predatory surrounding more like with the predator sounding more like Aaliyah than. So let me see. Their relationship was almost normalized with the predator sounding more like Aaliyah than Kelly. It was even right down to her debut album where the title track incriminates her through the music, despite the pen belonging to R. Kelly. Even Kelly's legal representatives in the past have attempted to allege that R. Kelly didn't know Aaliyah's age, despite footage from an old documentary in 94 surfacing years later where R. Kelly says, right now, I'm producing a very talented lady, a young lady. She's 14, Aaliyah. She's real street. She just be chilling. It was an unfair imbalance where the blame fell more upon Aaliyah. After all, she was the one who had to do serious recon following the news breaking. Their partnership ended, and Aaliyah now had to rebuild her career from the ground up while R. Kelly exited unscathed until the truth about him got out. Houseway. So it's crazy how that completes chapter 2. So they're saying there became a time when they tried to shift the blame onto Aaliyah. How do you shift the blame onto the child, the minor, the person who is being preyed upon? Like, I don't understand. That makes no sense. But y'all, in this book, they named every relationship that was inappropriate, I noticed, except for Kimora Lee Simmons and Russell Simmons. Y'all remember that? Like Kimora, I heard her say she was in high school. She knew she was with him before she even went to prom because she remembered not going to prom because she was dating Russell Simmons. And of course, he couldn't go to prom. So she went, well, I think she went to prom with her girlfriends. She didn't have like a date because she was dating him and he couldn't go, because he was, too old. But I just found it interesting that the person didn't mention their relationship when everybody know, they hooked up during the time when Kimora was underage. So we'll take a break. Let me see. Welcome. Happy New Year, everyone. Let me get into some of these comments. That was a lot. That was a more lengthy chapter than the first one. So we have gotten through 2 chapters. What y'all saying about it? Y'all, this is a whole mess. Aqua said, this is the age of awakening. The veil has been lifted for those who aren't drugged out. I agree. Aqua said, a huge shift is happening right now. All the skeletons will fall out now. Monique says, Sheik, they say Jay-Z liked her also. This baby, these grown men. Yep, I heard hell. I heard Jay-Z liked her. I heard Timberland had a crush on her. Y'all, I even heard Missy Elliott was actually liking her too. So the boy, listen, she was bringing the boys and the girls to the yard. So those are the things that I've heard, like that, who also had interest in Aaliyah. She was definitely popular. She was a popular girl to, guys and gals. Monique said, this is sick and her family are pathetic. Yes, yes, yes. Ariane said, yes, they just passed her around. Sad, sad, sad. Monique says 14 fantasies. What fantasy exactly? Exactly. Said that video Rock the Boat makes you think she is talking about rocking of the big boat she was on. Child, sad. That was the last music video that she made before she passed away. Back to Me was welcome. You said that's my favorite too. Monique says, I remember the Isley song. Rolena says, I miss TLC. We all miss them. Back to Me says, at the time of all the young girls were singing about sex, that was what the music was. Yeah. Rhoda says, right, that was a great time for music. Mary J. Blige, yes, the 90s was an awesome time for music. Mariah Carey. Ariane says, music is now way different. It's very different. Not for the better to me. Akaro says, I'm going to be more mindful of music I listen to from now on. Yeah, but even as you're listening to it, like sometimes in that moment, you're just taking in just the melody, the vibe, to where a lot of times we're not really paying a lot of attention to the lyrics until like after several times of listening to it, or after someone brings to our attention something that was said, you're like, wait a minute. And you got to kind of go back and replay it. So this is definitely a prime example of that, where, at the time when we was just, rocking, swaying from side to side to the lyrics, we not really even thinking about the inappropriate lyrics that she was singing, and it being connected to a grown man. Like that at that time, in real time, I would say most people weren't thinking that way. You probably had some, but it was kind of later down the line, after the people learned of a marriage, where people kind of started reflecting back on the music and breaking down the lyrics. Monique said, this is giving couple all day. Yeah. Rhoda said, that's probably how she got associated with Jay-Z as well. And that's what he did to his other victim. He had to wear clothes like that. It's crazy. Monique said, nobody wants to see this man had robbed her of her innocence. Like, it was so blatant. Rhoda says, people did not know they were married already. And here's the thing, once she broke away, it's like she really worked hard to try to move the conversation along. But it was like people still always want to talk about it, because it was like something almost like unheard of that we were hearing during that time, with a grown man like marrying, especially in like the Black culture, in the industry. Like, it was just crazy, even though, this author named out all these couples who kind of, had a similar history, as far as with the woman, being the now woman being a young girl, a minor at the time of the getting into a relationship with the grown man. It wasn't really talked about. It's like R. Kelly and Aaliyah was like that first big story, where it was like the water cooler gossip about a grown man being with a child. And I think a lot of people then, started reflecting back on, again, the lyrics, music video. You start kind of putting things together, but then you got both of these people kind of like denying stuff, not wanting to talk about it. So it just became this great, like this mystery of like, what really happened? Did they really get married? Then you'll hear people say there was proof of the marriage certificate. So, but many of us, I don't know, a lot of us even laid eyes on that marriage certificate, but we just heard that there was a marriage certificate out there that co-signed the marriage. Then people side-eyeing mama and daddy. Like, where were you? How you let it go down like this? Monique says she wanted to please him, and that is why she was wearing that vest. Did not go with her image at all. What I would love to know is what was it that had her to snap out of whatever and move on and get to a point to where she wanted to separate herself from him, and then, she got with Damon Dash. What was it that happened? That's what I would love to know. What happened that just severed the relationship where she moved on and never looked back? To me, for someone to just cut off like a light switch like that, it's like as close as they were, it's given that something had to have transpired that had her to just almost like instantly wake up. Because you don't be all engulfed in someone like that and then overnight you're not. Y'all know it's normally like a process. We went through Drea Kelly's story yesterday when I reacted to her interview with Carlos King. It was a process. It seems like with Aaliyah, it wasn't. It was like she was for him, and then until she wasn't. And it was like literally Sunday she was for him, and next thing you know, Monday, forget him, I've moved on, and never looked back. It wasn't even like a back and forth thing where, oh, they together, then it, like literally she walked, never looked back. I would love to know like what happened, because it's given that something happened that had her to move along. What did she come to learn that made her say, oh, hell, I can't do this? There was something I feel like the young Aaliyah had to learn that had her to wake up. It was a blessing that she did, but y'all know how it go. It usually is something that happens that has us to wake up and move along. Monique says, so nobody thought about what told her mother to play in all of this, then later then blame it on Aaliyah. Wow, it's crazy. And that happens a lot of times where, when inappropriate things happen and the man, he grown, but then people start looking at the girl, well, why she dressed like that? Well, why she was there anyway? A lot of times, people will start to blame the victim, especially when it's, a Black girl. I talked about this yesterday on my live, that people, and a lot of times Black women, we will protect and make up excuses for a man, a Black man in particular, before we will come to defense of the Black woman. We go find all these reasons to find blame in that woman. And I don't know, right now in this moment, what comes to me is that it may be probably just being rooted in jealousy, the natural cattiness that a lot of women have for one another. Because your average woman isn't in competition with a man. She's competing against another woman. So Aaliyah was young, beautiful. So now that she break ties and break away from R. Kelly, now people can kind of go in and be like, well, why was she doing that anyway? And just try to find some fault on this girl who they felt like came off as being so perfect. So now it's like, okay, well, let's tear her down. I knew something was off with her anyway. She was just too grown. The shift, it's like the blame shifts to her. And I think it's rooted from just envy and jealousy. Envy and jealousy because of just who she is, what she got going on, what she look like, who she's aligned with. So people going to find fault and hate on you. That's my personal opinion as to why I felt like people probably came for her like that. And just in general, why a lot of women go for women so hard opposed to the man when it's evident that man is in the wrong. So let's now get into chapter 3. Y'all, how my likes looking? Y'all, how my likes looking? Y'all hit the like if you haven't already. Welcome. Happy New Year. Thank you for being here with me tonight as we are getting into this book, Baby Girl, better known as Aaliyah. And we're just learning the intricate details of Aaliyah and her life. A lot of what we've heard have been kind of like I said, the chatter, the water cooler talk, the rumors. This is a book. This is someone who's done research, Kathy Iandali, who kind of, went deep diving, looking into the receipts, talking to people. So she's basically coming here to just co-sign a lot of things that we kind of wondered, speculated. She's like, y'all, let me just go ahead and put that to bed. Let me just tell y'all, yes, this was true. That wasn't true. So this is what we're getting. This book is definitely turning out to be a better read than I thought. I wasn't really expecting for this author to really air it out the way she is. I thought it would be more so sugar-coated just to keep a protective layer around Aaliyah. But I think she's doing a good job with just speaking the truth, but also not, smearing this woman, because she was a young girl. Keep that in mind, you all, as I read this book. She was a young girl. She was 12 years old when she met Robert Sylvester Kelly. Chapter 3, R. Kelly's Lost Survivor. That ninja are my girl. Y'all, I'm paraphrasing. That ninja, y'all know what the ninja, that ninja are my girl. Damon Dash. That's a quote by Damon Dash from Cannon's class on 2019. So this is Damon Dash, his sentiments as far as with R. Kelly and his relationship with the late Aaliyah, who was his girlfriend at the time of her passing. Dash was the first to call it rape and took it nearly 20 years for him to say it publicly. While the media tossed around phrases like forbidden love, secret romance, and love affair to describe R. Kelly's relationship with Aaliyah, none of those descriptors were accurate. It wasn't until the true sexually abusive patterns of R. Kelly were brought to the light that the question of how Aaliyah fit into that narrative came into play. And even then, she was still portrayed more like the blushing young bride than the teenage victim. R. Kelly's relationship with sex was warped since childhood. In his 2012 autobiography, Solar Coaster, The Diary of Me, Kelly details his first sexual experience. He was 8 years old. The woman was at least 10 years older than me, he reveals. He was molested by that same woman repeatedly for years. No matter how many times it happened, I knew I could never tell anyone, he writes. I was too afraid and too ashamed. Psychologically, experts consistently point to repeated patterns following trauma where the abused evolves into the abuser if they don't seek proper mental health treatment. Even in Solar Coaster, R. Kelly delves shallowly into the damaging effects of that abuse. He places the shame and blame upon himself and never tackling his need to heal. Instead, he used it as a springboard into his hyper sexualization that made him millions. R. Kelly's book arrived a decade following numerous accusations of pedophilia and statutory rape over the years. The first teenager to come forward was Tiffany Hawkins in 1996, also known as Tia Hawkins. She was the vocal collaborator on Aaliyah's Age Ain't Nothing But a Number album. Hawkins, a Chicago native, met Kelly in Chicago's Hyde Park neighborhood at the Kenwood Academy, where she sang in the choir. She was 15, Kelly was 24. This was 1991 when R. Kelly's star was just beginning to shine. So when she and her friends spotted him hanging around near her high school, Hawkins, an aspiring singer, had to walk up to Kelly and introduce herself. They formed a rapport rather quickly, which gave Hawkins a false sense of hope that he would help her get her big break. Instead, he made her his teenage madame. Initially, Hawkins served as the wrangler, bringing her young friends over to R. Kelly's home where he would have sex with them. Eventually, Hawkins was coerced into sexual encounters herself. That's when her sexual relationship with R. Kelly really took form. She eventually moved in with him and stayed for 3 years, advised by Kelly to cut off contact with all of the people around her. When she learned that she was pregnant, Hawkins alleged she was urged to handle the pregnancy and never again mentioned the possibility that the child was Kelly's. About 2 years into her relationship with R. Kelly in 94, Aaliyah came into the picture. Both Hawkins and Aaliyah became good friends, hanging frequently around of one of Hawkins' classmates and also with a background singer of R. Kelly's name, Javante Cunningham. Together they called themselves Second Chapter. In that infamous interview on BET's Video Soul Gold, Kelly says the concept behind the title of Age Ain't Nothing But a Number came from Second Chapter bantering about boys. She's running around the studio one day with her friends, talking a lot of smack. Tells her age, talking a lot of smack. Tell her age ain't nothing but a number. Girl, I'm like, so what you try to say? He wrote the title track in 15 minutes and had Aaliyah sing it shortly thereafter. Hawkins became part of the project, as mentioned, even sitting beside Aaliyah on top of a Jeep, in Aaliyah's At Your Best, You Are Love music video. So, homework, we need to check out that age ain't At Your Best You Are Love video, because this young woman, she is sitting on top of the Jeep next to Aaliyah. So you got to look into that. Essentially, they were friends and collaborators brought together by what has later become known to be very typical play in R. Kelly's luring girls together harem style. Aaliyah was an unfortunate part of this long before Kelly's diabolical ploys came to light. In author and journalist Jim DeRegali's book Soulless, The Case Against R. Kelly, he reveals all but one of my sources said she and Kelly began having sexual contact during her first recording sessions. Hawkins says in Lifetime Surviving R. Kelly Part 2, The Reckoning, when I found out Robert married Aaliyah, I didn't care, because if someone else was sleeping with him, that was, let me see. Hawkins says in A Lifetime Surviving R. Kelly Part 2, The Reckoning, when I found out Robert married Aaliyah, I didn't care, because if someone else was sleeping with him, that was great, because I didn't have to. Her claims in the docuseries were that she was never particularly attracted to R. Kelly, but since he was holding her potential singing career in his hands, she felt as if she had no choice but to obey his wishes. Other girls in the R. Kelly sex circle have stated that eventually Aaliyah and Hawkins fell out because Hawkins was rumored to be jealous of Aaliyah, and maybe due to her sleeping with R. Kelly, or because of the fame she had that Hawkins never achieved. In 1996, the situation came to a head when Hawkins sued R. Kelly for emotional distress, as Hawkins was riddled with trauma and even suicidal. The suit was for $10 million in damages, but by 1998, she settled for $250,000. I was the first girl and nobody believed me, she said in Surviving R. Kelly. And after it continued to happen again and again and again, still the line was hardly drawn to connect R. Kelly's history with the young girls to his relationship with Aaliyah, perhaps because it was so clandestine. I thought that they had fallen in love, that it was wildly inappropriate on R. Kelly's part, but that it was some legit intimate mistake that her parents had swooped in to correct, remembers Dream Hampton. Hampton, executive producer for for Surviving R. Kelly, was a writer for Vibe in the late 90s and early aughts, and was assigned a cover story on R. Kelly's for Vibe's November 2000 issue. I wrote the Vibe story that ended up being used in the trial because we shot the cover of him inside the sauna where the rape tape was, Hampton explains. I was told by the publicist Regina Daniels that I couldn't ask Aaliyah when I interviewed. I couldn't ask about Aaliyah when I interviewed him, and I was there to basically do an observational kind of making of an album piece, which is pretty fluffy. Daniel later had her own issues with R. Kelly upon learning that he had a secret affair with her young daughter, Maxine. During Hampton's assignment, she was scheduled for 2 days of observation for the profile, but it ended up being nearly a week. He kept putting off the actual interview, she adds. I remembered asking him about Aaliyah, and he was pissed, and he glared at me because I had broken a rule that his publicist laid down. Then when a piece came out, he called me and cursed me out. And I was like, did you think we were friends because I'd been there for 5 days? A month later, Pandora's box opened. On December 21st, 2000, D. Rogatis, then the writer for the Chicago Sun-Times, printed the article R. Kelly accused of sex with teenage girls, with Abdon Palash, which came following an initial piece on R. Kelly shortly before the Thanksgiving holiday that year. D. Rogatis, the Sun-Times resident pop critic on and off for nearly a decade, received a mysterious fax addressed to him in response to his album review of R. Kelly's fourth studio album, TP2.com, the sequel to 12 Play. On his prior album, R. Kelly reached new heights with his squeaky clean mainstream hit, I Can Believe I Can Fly. And D. Regalis challenged his ability to volley back and forth seamlessly between sanitized pop hits and sexually charged anthems on the next project, citing examples of another artist like Marvin Gaye who code switched for more fluidity. Then the facts arrived. One page and single space. Dear Mr. D. Rogatis, I am sending this to you because I don't know where else to go. You wrote about R. Kelly a couple of weeks ago and compared him to Marvin Gaye. Well, I guess Marvin Gaye had problems too, but I don't think they were like Robert's. Robert's problem, and it's a thing that goes back many years, is young girls. The letter cited clear examples, one of which named R. Kelly's goddaughter, Rashana Landfair, as a victim, with the anonymous writer noting, I'm telling you about it, hoping that you or someone at your newspaper will write an article, and then Robert will have no choice but to get help and stop hurting the people he's hurting. It was signed a friend. And so began D. Regata's extensive coverage of R. Kelly's diabolical history, which eventually found Kelly in prison. Within a month, D. Regata's article was printed, calling out not only R. Kelly's pathological behavior, complete with notes to the court records and interviews, but also the mechanisms with which he encounters his underage prey. Sources said Kelly continues to seek meetings with underage girls by having an assistant press tiny, balled up notes with his phone number into the palms of their hands backstage, at concerts, or at video shoots, the article states. D. Regatas later gave R. Kelly's troubled history a panoramic view with Solis, the case against R. Kelly in 2019. 2 weeks after D. Regatas and Palash article, an anonymous VHS cassette was delivered to the Sun-Times office. On it was a light-skinned girl with long dark hair kneeling on a pillow and performing oral sex on R. Kelly, among other disturbing visuals. Neither De Regalis nor Palash could identify the girl or her age. They turned the footage over to the police. By this point, Barry Hankerson was long out of the picture. In February 2000, Hankerson resigned from managing R. Kelly after writing with him for 8 long years, 6 of which was part of the Tangled allegory involving his niece. Hankerson resigned via letter to Kelly's attorney at the time, Gerald Margolis, where Jive Records founder and head Clive Calders was CC'd. In De Regalis' books, he noticed that Hankerson's lawyer advised that he was leaving because he believed Kelly needed psychiatric help for a compulsion to pursue underage girls. Many have villainized Hankerson when it comes to his protection of Aaliyah or lack thereof. Many have submissed that he made this union possible and through it allowed for Aaliyah to be fed to the predatory wolf, only to continue managing the wolf in an effort to double dip and cash out on both Kelly's and Aaliyah's success. It wasn't that easy. It never is. Hankerson rarely speaks about what happened between Aaliyah and R. Kelly, but his retributive presence was and still is felt. It's very possible that he had no idea of how vile R. Kelly was to Aaliyah and that his niece, mature beyond her years, fell for a man who seemed immature beyond his own. If Dash was the first to learn of R. Kelly's abuse towards Aaliyah, then Barry would have equally been in the dark. However, Barry Hankerson is no fool. He's a gangster by design and put two and two together when Tia Hawkins came forward. If it could happen to Tia Hawkins, then it could happen to Aaliyah Halton. Things seemed to change after that realization. Hankerson allegedly contacted Minister Louis Farrakhan. Farrakhan delivered a speech in 2019 where he revealed to his congregation that he met with R. Kelly amid boos from the crowd. Farrakhan hushes them before continuing. He was managed by a friend of mine. Farrakhan says, asking someone side stage, what's that brother's name? Barry Hankerson, he continues. And Barry told me, I'm going to get rid of him. I said, Barry, be patient. That boy is deeply spiritual. A man can't write no songs like that and not have God all up in him. But he's got to be cleansed. The phrase get rid of him will lead most to believe that Barry meant he was going to have R. Kelly murdered. DeRogatis inquired about that speech over text to Barry Hankerson. This was his reply. The minister prays for the worst of the worst, and that's why he's the minister. However, he has guided me well. He closed the text with ASA, an abbreviation for Assalamu alaikum, or peace be with you. I'm a Muslim. I do my prayers every day, Hankerson told Geoff Eggers in 2018 interview with the Washington Post after being asked if he had any regrets about R. Kelly. Hankerson revealed he was prohibited by law from speaking about his former artists. I lost my niece in a plane crash, and please excuse my language, but I don't really give a F about none of them people you're talking about. While Hankerson clearly didn't follow through with those plans at the behest of Farrakhan, and Farrakhan warned R. Kelly about the pending threat, he was rumored to have found redemption in other ways. Information slowly began trickling in about R. Kelly's despicable patterns. Rashana Landfair's aunt was R&B singer R. Kelly protege Stephanie Edwards, better known as Sparkle. When DeRogatis previously attempted to speak with her based on the mystery facts allegation, she didn't provide much information. She later called DeRogatis and explained to him that she was shown a VHS tape as well, but this one seemed far different and more revealing than the one sent to the Sun-Times. It wasn't enough information to implicate R. Kelly without DeRogatis receiving the tape himself. In February 2002, Jim DeRogatis received a phone call, go to your mailbox. The mysteriously deep voice based on the other end. In his mailbox was now a second unlabeled VHS cassette in a manila envelope. On the video was what later discovered to be the 3-year-old video footage showing R. Kelly having sex for nearly 30 minutes with a girl who could now be identified as his goddaughter. The video closes with him urinating on her. Chicago police began an investigation of child pornography following the police's anonymous receipt. The footage was then leaked, packaged, and sold by street vendors as a sex tape, in response to which R. Kelly denied the claims that it was him on the tape. He later said he had a twin brother, placing the blame on his non-twin brother, Corey Kelly, and offering him $50,000, a recording contract, and a new car to take the fall. Well, hell, if he say it's him, the brother say it's him, he going to jail. He ain't finna be able to be out to spend $50,000, record music, and buy a car. Hell, the $50,000 is gonna have to go on legal fees. So that's how you know how dumb R. Kelly was, because that right there don't even make sense. The accusations piled on, primarily involving underage girls. By August 2001, an Epic Records intern in Chicago, Tracy Sampson, sued R. Kelly for forcing her into oral sex with another woman at 17, though years later she told Dateline that their sexually abusive relationship started around 1999 when she was just 16. They ended their relationship when Sampson turned 18 And while the suit was for $50,000, she received $250,000 settlement in 2002. In addition to the leaked video, that year proved to be monumental in R. Kelly's twisted history of sexual allegations. It's unclear whether Barry Hankerson orchestrated the leaking of the tape, or was it simply Sparkle who had delivered the video to DeRanjada's mailbox. DeRanjada to this day doesn't know who brought him the tape, but he has a suspicion. If Barry was the man behind R. Kelly's downfall, it would make perfect sense. He hurt Barry's niece. The abuse didn't start or end there, though. It's crazy, though, then how Aaliyah's uncle, Barry Hankerson, suddenly started kind of feeling away after another woman spoke about her abuse allegations. Meanwhile, his niece was like being abused under everybody's nose, and was evident that R. Kelly was having inappropriate relations with his niece. And even after Aaliyah separated from R. Kelly, Hankerson still continued to work with R. Kelly. So why now you want to be in your feelings about what R. Kelly may have done or did do to your niece after the fact? Like, it's just crazy. I'm just wondering, like, what's really rooted in him feeling a certain type of way? Is it, okay, we let you slide with what happened to my niece, but you still was out here doing stupid-ish, and now you done effed up the bag and got everybody talking, so I got to part ways with you. To me, that's what it's giving. That it's like, you know what? I can't even cover for you no more because it's getting too much. So you done messed up the bag. So now I'm going to just express my feelings about you messing with my niece. And, it's just crazy. So to me, I feel like his sentiments was kind of just rooted in it impacting his bag, his livelihood at this point, because R. Kelly couldn't keep his ish together. Everything was seeming to fall apart. Remember, it's a whole system in place. Everybody is dependent on R. Kelly. So R. Kelly got to look good and continue to bring in the money so everybody else can get paid. But at this point, R. Kelly is moving so recklessly to where it's impacting the money. At this point, if everybody's talking, it's going to impact the job and the work opportunities that he's able to get. I think that is when Hankerson said, you know what, I got to get off this shit, because basically he messing with the money. He's messing with the money. I don't feel like it was rooted in Aaliyah, just based off of the timing. In April of 2002, Patrice Jones filed a $50,000 lawsuit against R. Kelly, alleging he had sex with her when she was 16, impregnated her, and then forced her to have an abortion. Jones settled her case as well. In May of that same year, Isley Brothers background dancer Tina Wood sued R. Kelly for filming them having sex without her consent. The product, distributed as a sex tape titled R. Kelly's Triple X. By June, he was indicted on 21 accounts of child pornography. While he posted his own $750,000 bail, he also pleaded not guilty in court. A 6-year span stretched between the allegations and the trial. Despite R. Kelly racking up 12 more accounts of child pornography between 2002 and 2004, footage was seized from a Florida home that Kelly was renting, including cameras showing film of minors engaging in sexual activities. R. Kelly is in some of the photos. However, because the footage was illegally obtained, it couldn't be used during the trial. The trial wouldn't happen until May 2008. A month later, he was acquitted on all accounts of child pornography. The reason for the acquittal stemmed from one woman, Rashonda Landfair. She denied claims that it was her in the tape, refused to appear in court to testify, and dismissed any allegations that she had a sexual relationship with her godfather. This ultimately forced the court's hand, and so R. Kelly was acquitted. 11 years later, in 2019, his goddaughter came forward once Kelly's abusive patterns finally came into focus after 2.5 decades of failing to adequately charge him. An article in the Chicago Tribune reported that his goddaughter's long-awaited cooperation was an act of bravery, where she more than likely lied previously for her own self-protection. It will be harder for Kelly to wiggle out of this one. Chicago Tribune reporter Darlene Glanton writes. The 52-year-old R&B singer is battling charges of sexual assault, obstruction of justice, child pornography, and racketeering. Prosecutors said Kelly sexually assaulted 12 women, at least 8 of whom were underage at the time, and some as young uh, as seventh and eighth graders. New videos also surfaced 17 years after the first tape showing R. Kelly urinating in the face of a minor and choking her, saying out loud on the tape that she is only 14 and having her reiterate her age. Another victim, Joycelyn Savage, came forward later in 2019 and told stories of R. Kelly urinating and defecating in her mouth. This is all on top of further investigations stating starting in 2017 that R. Kelly was running an underage sex cult. When DeRogatis moved over to penning pieces for the BuzzFeed, he wrote one in July 2017 breaking down how families were torn apart over their daughters being locked in a sex cult with the self-proclaimed Pied Piper of R&B. Kelly confiscates the women's cell phones, DeRogatis writes in the piece, so they cannot contact their friends and family. He gives them new phones that they are only allowed to use to contact him or others with his permission. They also force him to they are also forced to call him daddy, as he calls them his babies, and they're dressed in baggy jogging suits because he doesn't want their bodies exposed. If other men are in the room, the girls must face a wall so they can't be looked at or show their eyes to anyone, particularly men. Heartbroken parents detail that they felt their children were brainwashed ones in his clutches. However, the ones who have escaped over the years eventually found their voice. The boost in confidence from the victims happened once an entire series was dedicated to documenting R. Kelly's aggressions. Lifetime, the same network that released the Aaliyah, the Princess of R&B biopic, which portrayed Aaliyah's relationship with R. Kelly as true romance in 2014, then released Surviving R. Kelly in 2019 and Surviving R. Kelly Part 2. The Reckoning in 2020, complete with interviews about Kelly's abusive nature towards young girls. I was invited into the project. Dream Hampton expresses, I couldn't say no. He was my generation's problem to solve. I felt that there was some movement happening with hashtag Mute R. Kelly, and another showrunner would it honor the activism. During the New York City screening of Surviving R. Kelly, a threat of violence was called in, after which the Newhouse Madison Square Theater had to evacuate. Prior to Surviving R. Kelly, it felt as though everyone had forgotten about his criminal behavior, especially in the absence of convictions, along with denials on R. Kelly's behalf. Everyone, that is, except for Damon Dash. Once he and Aaliyah started dating in 2000, he knew everything. In Surviving R. Kelly Part 2, The Reckoning, Dash refers to Aaliyah as the sacrificial lamb of R. Kelly's twisted world. He explained in the docuseries that Aaliyah referred to R. Kelly as a bad man, though she held no malice against him. Per Dash, Aaliyah's standpoint was, let that man live, but just keep him the F away from me. However, Dash, in honesty towards R. Kelly, eventually led into his business. As the co-founder of Rockefeller Records, along with Jay-Z, Dash was faced with a dilemma towards the end of 2000 when Jay-Z agreed to appear on the remix to R. Kelly's TP2.com single, Fiesta. At this point, Dash was almost 30 and had already been dating Aaliyah for several months, aware of what R. Kelly had done to her. In a video interview on Nick Cannon's Class, Dash broke it down. Quote, if me and you are cool and you know that I got a girl that your man raped and I tell you you're going to still work with him, what you going to feel? He hypocritically asked Cannon, referring to Jay-Z's awareness of what R. Kelly had done to Aaliyah and still agreeing to work with him. That end raped my girl that he liked as well and went on tour with him. Dash also told Page Six in 2019 that Jay-Z had a failed attempt to woo Aaliyah before he did. He tried very hard, Dash told Page Six, but we were both going hard. Everybody was trying to get to Aaliyah, and it was not just Jay. I did not know Jay was trying to holler at her, but then it just happened like that. He was trying, I was trying, everybody was trying. He was going hard. Many have argued that Jay-Z did date Aaliyah before Dash had, while others claim the two were just hanging out. Hampton remembers first introducing Aaliyah and Jay-Z one night at a club in New York City and then learning they kept in touch after the evening. Jay-Z had already been a fan, having sampled Aaliyah's One in a Million for his track intro, A Million and One Questions, Rhyme No More, Off in My Lifetime, Volume 1. All of this predates Aaliyah's relationship with Dash. But that acknowledgement of Jay-Z's feelings for Aaliyah in any capacity left Dash shocked that he would agree to work with someone who violated her. Then again, maybe it was spite, a retaliatory move, where again, Aaliyah was the unfortunate pawn. There is no way to prove the motive behind Jay-Z's decision to work with R. Kelly, though Dash argued it frayed the already weakening Rockefeller brand. The final straw. The final straw snapped in 2002. After Aaliyah had died, when Jay-Z joined forces with R. Kelly for the Best of Both Worlds collaborative album. On the title track, Jay-Z even goes as far as mentioning grieving Aaliyah and then saying, "But I hope my boy Dash gets to see her when he passes." Dash refuses to have his name on the project, and whatever proceeds he received from anything involving the Best of Both Worlds, he donated to a breast cancer charity in honor of Aaliyah's late grandmother. This was also the rumored reason why Rockefeller Records was dismantled a short while later. All of this begs the question of what exactly happened to Aaliyah during her time with R. Kelly. Damon Dash called it rape, arguably beyond statutory, though he's one of very few people who are vocal about anything criminal regarding Aaliyah and R. Kelly. Prior to their public marriage annulment in 1995 on September 29, 1994, less than a month after the date on the marriage certificate, a document was signed by R. Kelly, Aaliyah, and both of Aaliyah's parents. The document was anonymously sent to DeRogatis, all of which he reports in Solis. The agreement states that R. Kelly is to pay $100 to Aaliyah in exchange for cutting ties altogether and never mentioning their relationship again. Due to the nature of the music industry and its ability to engender rumors and dismantle personal information, both true and untrue, as per agreement, the $100 was also rumored to actually be $3 million off of the books. As DeRogatis puts it, further, R. Kelly was not held accountable for anything that happened or anything that was happening. So basically, it's saying Aaliyah off the records was paid $3 million to not confirm any of the details pertaining to her relationship with R. Kelly. On the document, it says $100, which is crazy, but they're saying really it was $3 million. That was off the record, so they didn't put that in writing. Because $100 is crazy, right, Monique? So, but $3 million, okay, that sounds plausible. So it explains why she refused to talk about it. So further, R. Kelly was not held accountable for anything that happened or anything that may happen, even a decline in her ability, reputation, or marketability, emotional distress caused by any aspects of her business or personal relationship with Robert, or physical injury or emotional pain and suffering from any assault or battery perpetuated by Robert against her persons. R. Kelly's attorney in the matter, Arnold E. Reed and Barry Hankerson, were the mediators who were police and prevent any further interactions. This prevented Aaliyah from vocalizing her experience publicly. Years later, it may have even prevented her from coming forward as a survivor with the rest of the young women. The situation was written off many times as having never happened, despite so many bearing witness to the traumatizing disaster that continued on for far too long. During surviving R. Kelly, Javante Cunningham tells a startling story where she and Kelly's entourage were all sitting on their tour bus when the back bedroom door flew open to expose Kelly having sex with Aaliyah in plain view. Per Cunningham, R. Kelly was doing things that an adult should not be doing with a child. She punctuated that sentiment with expressing how people are still suffering behind the things that went on 20 years ago. Aaliyah's mother, Diane Halton, released a statement calling Cunningham a liar and saying that both she and Aaliyah's father, Mike, were always on tour with Aaliyah, leaving no room for this behavior to occur. These lies and fabrication cannot be tolerated and allowed to be spewed from the forked tongues of sabotagers of Aaliyah's legacy, Diane Halton added in the statement. Lisa Van Allen, who also appeared in Surviving R. Kelly to detail her abusive relationship with Kelly when she was just, let's see, when she was just 17, shed further light on Kelly's relationship with Aaliyah in an interview with Vlad TV in 2019. Van Allen says she first developed a trusting relationship with R. Kelly, who through discussing how she was molested by his sister growing up, formed a bond with Van Allen. He then went on to discuss Aaliyah. They had a pact, she said, pins in eyeballs. No matter what anyone said or if anyone stuck pins in their eyeballs, they would never talk about their relationship. If what Van Allen is saying true, then Kelly again created this juvenile circle of trust, like two kids spitting in the palms of their hands and shaking on it. Van Allen also another harrowing claim. He did get a little more in depth in details when her mother found out. He actually stayed in their home in Detroit, and her mother actually was sexually attracted to him as well. She continues. He said when Aaliyah would go to sleep, that he would now, this was what he said. He said that he would go in the living room and him and her would do sexual acts on the couch while Aaliyah was asleep in the bedroom. Diane Halton had vehemently denied those claims. Van Allen then continued to explain that Kelly confided that he did marry Aaliyah with a doctored marriage certificate and she was pregnant at the time. R. Kelly supposedly felt that if he could say he didn't know she wasn't 18, then he wouldn't get in trouble if anyone found out about her pregnancy before Aaliyah was able to have an abortion because she was now his wife. And this came out of his mouth, Van Allen adds. I could take a lie detector test to this. This is what he told me. An extended version of the pregnancy story is also told in 2011 book The Man Behind the Man, Looking from the Inside, where a man named Demetrius Smith, who was once employed by R. Kelly, states that during his Miami tour stop, Aaliyah frantically called Kelly to tell him that she ran away from home and that she thought she was pregnant. So y'all keep in mind, this person, Van Allen, is saying R. Kelly told her that he used to have sexual relations with Aaliyah's mother when Aaliyah would be asleep. So R. Kelly claimed to this person that he basically, listen, he was getting to the mama and the daughter at the same time. I don't know if he confessed to Van Allen about relations with Aaliyah, but he confessed to Van Allen that he was having relations with Aaliyah's mother, which Aaliyah's mother denies. The two flew to Chicago for fake ID and a marriage certificate. And once the marriage was secured, R. Kelly jumped right back on his tour. In court documents, Aaliyah admits that she lied about her age on a marriage certificate. Smith appears in Surviving R. Kelly to acknowledge his own guilt as he was there for the wedding. I was in the room when they got married, Smith said. I'm not proud of that. I had papers forged for them when Aaliyah was underage. It was just a quick little ceremony. She didn't have on a white dress. He didn't have on a tux, just everyday wear. She looked worried and scared. Aaliyah ran away from home prior to the wedding and after being left in the hotel rooms as R. Kelly went back on tour following their marriage, she returned home and confessed to her parents and to Barry what had happened. In 2016, R. Kelly spoke with GQ magazine in what was described as a candid interview with no restrictions and no holds barred. Kelly echoes his childhood trauma as well as highlighting the cyclical nature of sexual abuse. R. Kelly, a man who has been accused of multiple sexual offenses against underage girls, has just explained that he believes the sexual abuse he suffered is something that is passed down from generation to generation, so that in each new generation, victims become predators. Journalist Chris Heath writes, once he said these words, and they are hanging in the air between us, it just seems impossible to imagine that he won't at least address the obvious question. The question. He must surely realize that anyone reading this would immediately ask. By that logic, wouldn't that make you the next in the cycle of child molesters? Question mark. Naturally, R. Kelly's response to his own guilty admission led to a deflection of any further probing, amplifying his denial yet again. When the subject of Aaliyah arrives, he acknowledges that they loved each other, but still remains vague. Well, because of Aaliyah's passing, as I've always said, out of respect for her mother who's sick and her father who's passed, I will never have that conversation with anyone, he says. Out of respect for Aaliyah and her mother and father who has asked me not to personally, but I can tell you I loved her. I can tell you she loved me. We were close. We were, best friends. No, he's like, we were, best friends. Child, he put four bests in that before friends. Then adds that Aaliyah and her family had the opportunity to talk publicly about this when she was still alive, with no mention of their agreement of silence. His obtainment of false identification to marry Aaliyah in 94 came back in 2019 when he was indicted on a new count of bribery for bribing an official for a fake ID. Aaliyah is listed as Jane Doe #1 on the indictment. He pled guilty at the brief hearing, which he attended over video from jail. R. Kelly's unhinging in the media happened right before our eyes. A year early in 2018, a video resurfaced from an interview with Touré for BET, which birthed the quote heard round the world. Touré, quote, do you like teenage girls? This is R. Kelly. Well, when you say teenage, how old are we talking? Boy, if you don't stop playing. The Q&A went retroactively viral in the wake of social media, especially upon realization that Kelly was in his 40s when he supplied that answer. Then in 2019, CBS This Morning co-host Gayle King interviewed R. Kelly for a primetime special where she sat calmly as he rose from his seat and beat his chest in both a televised and choreographed meltdown. This unraveling only set the stage for what was to come. On July 23rd, 2018, R. Kelly released a 19-minute song called I Admit, where he goes controversy by controversy, defending his innocence in parts and confessing in others. There's a part in the song where he details an interaction with Wendy Williams where Williams is asking him a series of questions. She said, what about Aaliyah? R. Kelly sings of Williams' inquiry, to which he responds to himself, I said love. He follows the line with Williams asking about his sex tape and referring to the situation as a setup. Currently, R. Kelly sits in prison since the summer of 2019, following his arrest for sex trafficking that July. His requests for release have been denied, including one plea in March of 2020 from his own concern for his health and safety during COVID-19 pandemic. That same month, he was charged with 9 more counts of sex trafficking with racketeering, and 8 violations of the Mann Act filtered in. The Mann Act, passed in 1910 by President William Howard Taft, prohibited prohibited the transporting of women and girls for immoral purposes, i.e., prostitution, also called the White Slave Traffic. Also called the White Slave Traffic Act of 1910. It was later considered weaponizing to consensual sex workers, though the stringency of the law has been useful in charging for sex trafficking. In Kelly's case, these charges stem from 2015, when he had sex with more underage girls, allegedly giving one herpes. His plate is now full with 22 federal criminal charges for allegedly sexually abusing 11 girls between the years of 1994 and 2018, along with 4 other indictments of sexual assault and abuse. He and his team still argue there's a lack of evidence to implicate him. R. Kelly's Facebook page is flooded with comments from female fans of all ages, not promoting not promoting his innocence, but rather acknowledging his guilt and expressing their desire to be added to his diabolical harem. Young girls stating their age, asking to meet him, along with older women willing to be the exception, are just a few examples of what happens when fame produces nefarious results. His abusive history is less of a timeline and more of a snowball. It started with 10 to 12-year disparity in age, picking specific young girls and so called dating them. Though, as he reached his 30s, 40s, and 50s, involved into sex cult, complete with charges of sex trafficking and sexual abuse that has only escalated in violence. It's what happens when a court of law witnesses the patterns and still releases the predator. Add to that global recognition and acclaim, even during the mayhem during the 20-year span R. Kelly's sexual violence. He released 13 albums, including a Christmas album in 2016 titled 12 Nights of Christmas, 2 collaborative projects with Jay-Z, and went on 11 headlining tours and 2 co-headlining tours, released a memoir, and won nearly 100 awards that include Grammy Awards, BET Awards, American Music Awards, Billboard Awards, and then NAACP Image Awards, among others. It's impossible to see one's own guilt when the rest of the world has turned a blind eye. Only now, in a post hashtag Me Too world are we now seeing some action. However, while his label RCA Response parted ways with R. Kelly following the release of Surviving R. Kelly and the hashtag Mute R. Kelly, the Mute R. Kelly campaign that followed, there is still a growing interest in the singer. Peter Nielsen, following the airing of Surviving R. Kelly, his streaming data saw a 116% surge, jumping from 1.9 million streams on January 2nd, 2019, to a staggering 4.3 million streams by the following day. Then the enthusiasm for the music remains. Is this separating the artist from the art? And if so, how do you separate the two? So they're saying even after all of this, like in 2019, with him going to court, people, it just prompted people to go out and just show support through, purchasing and, streaming his music, which equates to money. Specifically to Aaliyah, it's more a matter of reading between the lines when deciphering their collective narrative, using parts of what was pattern behavior for Kelly. If there are known instances of R. Kelly's sexual abuse in the double digits involving girls who have barely left their single digit age, then what would lead anyone to believe that he somehow spared Aaliyah? There are a number of known observations between R. Kelly and Aaliyah that fall in line with his treatment of other survivors. It's neither impossible nor inconceivable to put two and two together. His track record of impregnating young girls and forcing them into abortions would lead to the unfortunate presumption that he probably did get Aaliyah pregnant. And considering she was both underage and high profile, a quick marriage was a band aid before an inevitable abortion. Per Van Allen, following Aaliyah's abortion, it was then that the marriage was annulled. Although there was a 6-month time frame between their marriage date, August 1994, and the rumored annulment date, February 95. Further, R. Kelly's desire to keep young girls in baggy clothing in an effort to prevent them from being ogled by other men would explain his desire to have Aaliyah wear that same loose fitting gear during her first album campaign. Add to that having her eyes concealed by dark shades, where now he simply has his victims face the wall. None of these similarities are coincidental, and there was one person who added it all up in real time, Barry Hankerson. It's not to say that Aaliyah never believed. It's not to say that Aaliyah never believed she was in love with R. Kelly. She probably did at one point. His affirmations, charism, guidance built Aaliyah's confidence as she started her road to stardom. We've heard this story countless times, but R. Kelly had a responsibility to Aaliyah as the adult in the room, and he failed her with behavior that is now known to be pathological. This was more than a one off coincidence of accidentally falling in love with a child. This is who R. Kelly is. And considering the new information consistently being made available implicates him even more as an abuser. It's painful to fathom his concealed treatment of Aaliyah. We may never know the depths of the abuse she specifically endured or when she even realized that what was happening was wrong. Aaliyah didn't just have a crush on an older man, she was violated by her mentor. And while she wasn't able to tell her story of surviving R. Kelly while alive, the hope is that maybe one day her family will do it for her. I wish that Aaliyah's family would speak because I think there are so many young Black girls who have been hurt. D. Rojatis reflects in Surviving R. Kelly what it would mean to know that Aaliyah was hurt that way too. So that completes chapter 3. Aaliyah, I guess we can say, arguably may have been like his first victim, at least, on record. Well, there was that woman that Aaliyah that they said, that collaborated with Aaliyah on music and things like that. So I take that back. Aaliyah was not the first. Aaliyah was not the first. Aaliyah, I think the inappropriate interactions and relationship that he had with Aaliyah was the first inappropriate relationship that was placed on stage, that was presented to the world, because anything else he was doing, it was kind of like behind the scenes, behind closed doors. It wasn't in front of the world for people to see and form opinions on. He was like sneaky with it. But with Aaliyah, it was pretty much like in your face, what they call plain sight. It was like literally in plain sight what he was doing, but people really wasn't kind of taking it in like that. And I just think, people was just so caught up in just the music that people was just overlooking just the obvious. And then another thing is, as this author pointed out in the book, there were other people in the entertainment industry who were having inappropriate relationships, other grown men having inappropriate relationships with underage girls. So it was almost like a thing, that something that people do, but you just don't talk about it. But fast forward, through time, we came to a time where people actually started talking about it. Monique says, Sheik, this is a lot. He was a sicko and parents involved and sold their daughters out. Yeah. Francis says, he is sick. The more I learn about him, the more I hate him. Ariane said, where was Drea at the whole time? So as I'm reading all of this, I'm thinking about the timeline of like when Drea got with him and when, you know, he started working with Aaliyah, because Drea says she left R. Kelly. They divorced in 2009. So yeah, that's interesting. Let me see what's the timeline, because Drea, I just remember her saying that. Let me see. Andrea Kelly. Let me see if I can see. She was married to R. Kelly from 96 to 2009. So Drea Kelly, I initially, as of yesterday, I was thinking Drea Kelly came on. Well, yeah, Drea Kelly came onto the scene after Aaliyah. Aaliyah and R. Kelly was like the early 2000s. So like that was like not 2000s, 90s, like 1990, like 1992 to 94. So Drea came after the fact. But what I do want to do, but what I do know is Drea doesn't talk about Aaliyah. She won't answer questions pertaining to Aaliyah. I recently came across a video with Drea being asked a question about Aaliyah, and she kind of got, you know, in a, you know, defensive about it. And, you know, it was just a clip, and the man, it was just she was in an interview, it was a man interviewing her, and he asked her like, about Aaliyah. And she was like, why do people ask me about Aaliyah? I'm not going to talk about her. When Aaliyah was living, she didn't like to talk about the situation, talk about R. Kelly. So I don't want to just tarnish, her legacy with having it be about R. Kelly. She did so many other things. So she painted it as though she didn't want to talk about Aaliyah out of respect. She just didn't want that to be the focal point of her life, because there's so many great things about Aaliyah. And her thoughts, and she's like, well, if Aaliyah wasn't open with talking about it when she was alive, what makes you think that her in the afterlife will be open with, coming here and people talking about, whatever. So she had this whole reason. I wasn't here for explanation. I feel like she doesn't like to talk about Aaliyah. For one, I think she's aware of the agreement that was made with not talking about Aaliyah. Since this book, we learned that there was like an agreement. Also, her talking about Aaliyah forces her to have to take accountability in the moment, because how do you get into a relationship with a man coming off of all of this? Because at this point, this was all in the news. Like, people were talking about the inappropriate relationship he had with Aaliyah, the alleged marriage, the marriage certificate that some people said they'd seen that existed. So Andrea would have to take responsibility with speaking on it, and being accountable for her actions, her behaviors, for still linking up with this man, even knowing this information. So I think it's easy for her to say, no, I don't want to talk about her out of respect, but I think it's rooted in her wanting to save face, to kind of get spared from having to justify hooking up with a man, marrying him, bearing his children after all of that. So I think that's the main reason why she don't want to talk. She don't want to deal with that. But also, there, as we learned in this book tonight, there was an agreement for it to not be discussed, and I believe she was aware of that agreement, for it to not be discussed. But I'm gonna say with Andrea Kelly, given how long she was married to R. Kelly from 1996 to 2009, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So she was married to him longer than I thought. I thought they were married for maybe like 9 years, 96, 2006, 7, 8, 9, but they were married for 13 years. So she was married to him. She was with him long enough to know some things, to see some things. And there's just some things that she still will not speak on. Aqua says that Francis, there are still women who back him at no cost, though. They are lost, and I hope they see the light soon, because he is not one to protect. Remember, I talk about a lot of women, they will go hard. They will protect that man for far longer and go harder for the man than, their fellow sister. It's just, it is what it is. And we can have a whole think piece and talk about why that may be. Francis says, Aqua, it's hard to believe that people like him exist. There are a lot of people like him exist. Monique says they just robbed her of her innocence and just continued on with other people. All of them was trying to get their piece of her. Nobody around to advise her to get counseling. Exactly. Remember, Dane said, hell, once she left R. Kelly, it's like, oh shit, Aaliyah on the market. Everybody was just lining up trying to get with her. And he managed to be the one lucky enough to, be able to get in a relationship with her. And so he got a lot of hate, I'm sure, from people in the industry because I'm sure, including Jay-Z, which is probably why Jay-Z lined up with R. Kelly in spite, because out of jealousy, it's like, well, he didn't get the girl. So it's like, F him, I'm about to go on tour with this man who he said, abused his girl, whatever. I'm going to show him. And through his actions, he showed Damon Dash that he didn't give a F about him or Aaliyah. He was about that money. He showed. And child was up from there. Monique says, oh, okay, that's better, 3 million. He has been held accountable now. He was so used to doing this stuff with these young women. He has kept on right. He became immune to the toxic behavior. The people around him also. Aqua says, we have to be careful because when we put all blame on her parents and then we excuse the predator, why is the predator excused? So this means as long as the parents know, then it's okay. I think it's when you have situations like this, the blame don't go on one person. Multiple people can be to blame or held accountable in situations. It don't have to be it all being 100% on one person. It's multiple people. It's multiple people. Especially, just think of a situation with a young child in a household, and they're abused by their mom's partner, their parent's partner, and the parent becomes aware, even though they didn't tell their partner, hey, go do this, but based off of their actions with just being laxed and being aware that this person don't have a good moral compass, but you still leave your children with them. You actually are aware that this person is a creep and they'll do whatever, and you still leave your children with them. Yes, that man who violated your children is at fault, but at the same time, that parent holds responsibility as well for not protecting their child when they were aware of things. In all situations, the parent, the guardian is not aware, but in far too many situations, a parent and a guardian is very much so aware, but they choose to turn the blind eye. And you have a lot of parents, like using the example I give, choose to turn a blind eye for money, for resources. A lot of times with these women, and they line up with these predators, they're destitute. They don't have their own. So they're relying on these men, these predators, for their survival, for their resources, for their protection. So when something does happen to their children, to them, they've rationalized, well, I can't go nowhere. We just gonna have to work through this. I'm just going to tell my daughter, listen, just don't even be by, try to just stay away from him. Lock your door at night, make up all kinds of excuses to put the onus and the responsibility on the child versus dealing with that adult, dealing with that predator. This is rooted a lot in just selfishness from the adults. And in Aaliyah's story, all the adults around her it was financial gains that they were able to have as a result of Aaliyah being aligned with R. Kelly. It was money. It's money. And this happens with a lot of situations, even in today's time with Diddy and all these accusations. We're learning about all the people around him who knew what was going on. There's so many people now who's ready to talk and tell their story, talk about their experience or what they witnessed. But at the time, they made the decision to not speak on it, to report it. Why? A lot of it was rooted in because their livelihood was stemmed from him. He was signing the checks. He was the product. He's the brand. So they were willing to do and play their part however they need to in order to get their needs met, while not giving an F on those around who were being violated and victimized. You have a lot of selfish people um, on this planet, and they're just out for self, and they will act like something is non-existent. They don't see something, they're not aware of something for their own personal gains. You all, people will put in their mind, make up some reason in their head to justify their behaviors, and to convince themselves that they didn't do nothing wrong, because, well, I ain't the one that touched her. Okay, yeah, I mean, I know, I heard, I even seen, but that ain't my business. Yeah, people will come up with stuff all the time. Some of you, may know of people who've done this very thing, who may be doing this very thing right now. Some of you may have done this very thing, or may be doing this very thing right now, where you're just caught up in how something impacts you. And you don't want it to impact you negatively. So you're choosing to sit it out, and, not report, not deal with something, not address it. Is layers to this. Aqua says attacking the parents. I understand, but it's the creep never seen an underage sexual relationship with a minor, then this would never happen. R. Kelly is a POS sexual deviant. I agree. Sue said, with all him moving around, I was waiting for the mention of disease coming up, and then you read it. Yeah. How does disease not come up? When I'm curious to know when Drea Kelly in her book, because she says she's releasing a book. Y'all check out, if you haven't checked out my live from yesterday, last night, going into the new year. Drea Kelly talked about having a book, that she's going to be releasing. I don't think it's released yet. I hadn't seen it out there. Y'all can let me know if it's out there, because I do want to get it and do a live reading on it. But as she told her story and talked about his behavior, she did not mention anything about STDs. She wasn't asked either. But I'm curious to know if it will make the book, because with the way he was moving out here in these streets, and her being married to him for 10 plus years, ain't no way that she did not contract something. Ain't no way. At best, the hope and the prayers that she didn't contract anything that she forever has to live with. It's that part for me. Aqua says, wow, Sheik, I just noticed your engagement on this topic is very low, very telling about a lot of viewers. Yes, that I talk about it. That's the thing. When it comes to serious topics on like this, people don't like to deal with things like this, because a lot of this kind of is real life stuff in people's lives. And when someone says, such as myself, speak on these things, it's like they can't handle it. I've talked about it a lot. When it comes to like negativity and speaking on the things that's negative that's going on in the world, people will show up in droves, because people thrive off of nonsense. They thrive off of chaos. But when it comes to the things that matters, that does not have the people's attention in the way in which it should, which is why this world is just effed up in the way that it is. This is why. This is why. So when you understand, the mindset, of people, because y'all know my thing. So any of you who are new to my channel, my background is clinical mental health counseling. I have a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. So that means studying of people. I love to study people, how people move, how people think. And people gravitate to the nonsense because they're able to relate to it more. It lines up with what they got going on more so than the positivity. So when you speak about the positive things, or the things that's really happened in the community, that the knowledge that's been shared can really make a difference, people ain't trying to hear that, because it requires for them to have to take action and to move differently. And that's not what people are trying to do. That is not what people are trying to do. But for someone like me, I recognize that, and I'm okay, because I'm not moved by the numbers. I'm not moved by the numbers, even though the numbers is what equates to, money and things like that. It's substance for me. It's substance for me. 2025 is heavy substance for me. So my message, my content, it will reach who it's supposed to reach when it's supposed to reach them. That is what it's about. Nothing else. Nothing else. Who sees it, who watches it, who listens to it, who comments, that's who's supposed to be doing that. Everything happens for a reason. I thank each and every one of you who are here with me tonight. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you all. Sue says, with all of him moving around, I was waiting for them. Okay, I read that one. Let's see. Aqua says, you keep speaking and sharing. Thank you for covering this. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Ariane says, yes, Sheik, in the part, Drea not helping her daughter. Kayla says, hey, what's up, Kayla? Ariane says, yes, Sheik, you are so right, but it's a new day and we doing other things. Yes. And that's the thing. When you recognize what's really happening out here, that's when you start to really try to move around and do something different. But it starts with first taking notice of the way things work, the way things work. So if you're interested in wanting to move and operate on a higher vibrational level, you have to move differently. You got to do something different. Definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome. I am moving. I have always kind of been on my positive stuff, but I'm doing it in a different, even on a higher level now as we go into 2025, or now that we are in 2025. That's just the only place I want to be on. It's just high frequency, just high vibrational type things that's going to help and make a difference for people, bringing awareness. That's what it's about, bringing awareness. That's what I want to do on a more grand level in 2025, is with my content between my two channels. I want to bring awareness to the people. Monique says, Sheik is triggering for me, but I told you I will follow you on all channels regardless of the topic. Also, Sheik, like you said, people are not ready to deal with this topic. They know, but here's the thing. When things happen in your life and it shows up on your front door, you have no other choice but to finally have to face it and deal with it. So people run for as long as they can. They run until the day that they can't run anymore. Just like R. Kelly. R. Kelly has ran, but guess what? He had to stop running when he got set down and had to go through trial, and now he's sitting in prison. That was the day when he had to stop running. That was the day where it stopped. And I say stop running because he's locked away, it stopped his ability to impact negatively the lives of other people. So all what they say, all dogs must have a day. All dogs must have their day. Have y'all like the video? Make sure you like the video for me, please. It doesn't cost you a thing. So we got through, let me see, the first 3 chapters of this book. I'm going to cut it here because, it's several more chapters to get into it, and I just wouldn't be able to get through them all. It looks like there's a total of 14 chapters. So I'm going to definitely be coming back to you all. Just look out for, the scheduled show for the next time. Most likely I'll probably come back tomorrow with a part 2 of this book. So I would definitely, before the week out, like to get through the entire book, but it will be in multiple lives because it's a more lengthy. I think it's 270 pages. It's a lot, but in between chapters, as you see, I like to kind of talk about the information that, was said, what was read, just to kind of take it in, just to make sure that you really understanding what is going here, what's been said. Aaliyah was failed by many, many people in her life. R. Kelly, her uncle, her parents, just so many people in her life failed her. And I believe it was rooted in money. I believe it's rooted in money. R. Kelly, I don't think his was rooted in money. R. Kelly's, I feel like, was just rooted in he was just a sick individual. He's also a victim of sexual abuse. So you, as we read in this book, and as some of you may know, you all, it's a curse. It keeps going on and on and on. A lot of times, victims of abuse becomes abusers themselves, and that's what he became, also an abuser. Hopefully it stopped with him, as far as with him and his generation, and none of his offsprings carry it out. Only time will tell. But this is Aaliyah's story, baby girl, better known as Aaliyah. So far, it's a great read. Like I said, far better than I thought. This author did a really good job with really digging into just those details, those things that many of us probably didn't know. So it's like a puzzle being pieced together, and it's making sense. I want to go back and listen to some of these songs that were referenced. I challenge you all to, you all kind of go back, re-listen to like the songs from Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, R. Kelly's album 12 Play, all, that music during that time. This was the era where Aaliyah, R. Kelly were kind of collaborating, working together. And maybe, you know, things will hit differently when you hear those songs again. Ariane says, Sheik, this is a good book reading. Thank you. Thank you, Ariane. I think it was you who recommended. So thank you for that. It's a lot, you know, it's more than the other books I've read, but it's fine. It's fine. We just gonna tackle it piece by piece. Thank you again. Addison said, I missed it, but I will catch the replay. Definitely be a part of the replay game. Monique says, pace yourself, Sheik. It's a lot. You're just getting over being sick. 2 chapters, 3 will still get through it in a decent amount of time. Sheik, what if he was abused as a kid? Well, he was abused as a kid. He said that. It was mentioned in this book, what they said when he sat down with, I think, Wendy Williams. I think he talked about being abused as a kid. He was 8 years old and he was abused by a woman who was like 10 years older than him. So I was aware prior to this book, you know, I was aware that he was abused. I've also heard his brother, he has a brother, can't think of his name right now. His brother interviewed with Tasha K some years back, and he talked about R. Kelly being abused at, you know, when they were children. And I want to say that the brother said that R. Kelly was abused by their sister, their older sister. I believe the brother said that's who he was abused by, but don't quote me on that. But me just going off of memory, going back to like 2019 and things when Tasha K was probably the first one on just in the YouTube sector, really breaking down all of the R. Kelly stuff and the thing with the girls and him traveling with them and people seeing him at hotels and having tour buses with a bunch of girls wearing tracksuits and heavy, you know, baggy clothes, them, you know, not being able to make eye contact with the men. These things that was said in this book, I remember Tasha K talking about it years ago. I remember that. So that kind of brought that memory back to me when Tasha interviewed the brother, and the brother was kind of co-signing things about R. Kelly and his history of abuse and his relationship with R. Kelly. And I think at the time when Tasha was interviewing the brother, R. Kelly and him didn't have they weren't on talking terms. He no longer had a relationship, I think, with his brother. He had chosen to separate himself from his brother because of he just no longer want to, I think, ride with his brother with just all that was going on. So you can kind of research that too. Again, that was Tasha K. So research Tasha K interviewing R. Kelly's brother, and I'm sure you'll kind of find that information out there on the internet. Ariane says, yes, Sheikah was his sister. So yes, there is a history there. He was an abused child and he turned into an abuser himself. It happens like that more often than not. That's pretty much how it happens. An abuser was once abused, and that's how the cycle continues. So listen, that was a show for tonight. I thank you. I thank each and every one of you. Please make sure you like the video for me. It's just free. That's all I ask of you, just to like the video, like, share, subscribe. Monetary support through Cash App, Super Chats, that's always, welcome and appreciated. But a like goes a long way for me. So if you at least like my video, subscribe, share the content, I am more than grateful. 2025 is also going to be a year for just enlightenment, moving on a higher vibrational level, talking about having these difficult conversations, sharing stories of those who have been victimized. Like Aaliyah, I want to do definitely more book readings, just spreading. I am a smaller content creator, but that's today. I know that will not be forever. I will know, there will be a time where I no longer will be a small content creator. So as I grow, this is how I want to grow, with bringing awareness to just the shenanigans that's going on out here in these streets. And it's not just Hollywood. This is just in these streets in general. I always like to leave by saying, take care of yourselves and one another. Ariane says, everyone enjoy your night, be safe, and see you on the next live. Yes, good nights. Go out there, take care of yourself and one another. Show up in a way in which you want others to show up for you. Be positive. Think positive. Like attracts like. Ariana said, yes, Sheik speaks it. That's what, listen, with Sheik, she speaks on it. I speak on it. 2025, we are definitely going to speak on it in a way that we haven't spoke on it in the past. So it's only up from here. And I appreciate your support. Continue to take care of yourselves and one another. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Heavy on the take care of yourselves. So many of us are out here taking care of everybody, everything, and we are neglecting ourselves. So take care of yourselves, mind, body, and soul. I am Sheik. I appreciate you all. Love you all. Like the video, and I will catch you on the next broadcast. Good night. Peace.